Good evening, everyone. If you're able, please I ask that you remain standing whilst my chaplain, Reverend Sandra Jones, offers prayers for the meeting. Thank you, Sandra.
Let us pray. Gracious God, as we gather today to serve our communities, we pause to reflect and seek wisdom. We pray for all our neighbourhoods where there is tension or division. Bring understanding where there is misunderstanding, calm where there is unrest, and hope where people feel unheard. Guide us in our words and decisions, that we may work for peace, fairness, and the common good. And Heavenly Father, we give thanks for the opportunity to serve the people of Wigan and Leigh. Bless our ward councillors and all who carry responsibility on behalf of others. Grant them patience in challenge, integrity in decision-making, and compassion in leadership. May our work today strengthen trust, build stronger communities, and reflect our shared commitment to those we represent. And as we begin this meeting, help us to listen carefully and speak thoughtfully. Be with communities experiencing strain or uncertainty, and with those working to bring people together across differences. May our discussions be guided by respect, our actions shaped by kindness, and our outcomes serve the well-being of all. So let's just take a moment of quiet reflection as we each think of our communities, especially those facing tension or division, and all our shared responsibility as councillors. May we approach today's work with open minds, steady judgment, and a genuine desire to serve the people of Wigan and Leigh with fairness and care. In the name of Jesus we ask. Amen.
Thank you, Sandra. Please be seated. I will just run through some housekeeping now prior to moving to tonight's business. We are not expecting a fire drill, therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please can you follow officers who will lead you to the nearest fire exit, where we will then gather at an assembly point on Believe Square. Officers will assist members of the public who are in the public gallery. Can I remind members of the need to respect each other, and I will continue to chair these meetings fairly and with impartiality. The public are welcome at the meeting, but should be aware that they do not interrupt or disrupt the proceedings. No one in the public gallery may take part in the meeting, and any disruption may result in removal from the public gallery or an adjournment of the meeting, in accordance with Rules 18 and 19 of the Rules of Procedure in the Council's Constitution. The rules of conduct for the meeting have been circulated to members in advance of the meeting. We will now move to the formal business of the meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening we have apologies from Councillor Anderton, Councillor Brown, Councillor Churton, Councillor Dorber, Councillor Eastoe, Councillor Guest, Councillor Harding, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Palmer, Councillor J Prescott, Councillor Reedy, Councillor Roberts, Councillor M Smethurst, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Tebbett, Councillor Wakefield and Councillor Whittingham. Do we have any further apologies this evening, members? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Held on the 26th of November. The minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of November 2025 are outlined from page 5 on the Council agenda. No amendments to the minutes have been received prior to the deadline of 5 p.m. last Tuesday, the 13th of January 2026. I will move the acceptance of the minutes of the meeting as a correct record. Sorry.
Happy to second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a bit of clarity on the minutes. There's quite a few on the voting record sheet saying vote not recorded, which I didn't want to mind it, but there's one against my name as well, which I know I voted on every single item, so I just wondering if there's a problem with the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. That will be looked into. Thank you. Leader, you wish to second the minutes?
I think I've already done that, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Yes. Can I put the minutes to the vote? All those in favour of accepting the minutes, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The minutes of the meeting are accepted. Item 3, announcements from the Mayor. The King's New Year's Honours List. I'm delighted to announce that this year we have 3 Wigan Award winners of the King's Award for Voluntary Service. These winners are Dr Wyn Jones, OBE for Public Service in the Prison Service, Ella Toon, MBE for Services to Association Football, and Jacqueline Lowe, BEM for Services to Foster Care. Also to mention that Anna Daw, the principal of Wigan and Lee College, also received an OBE. I've written to the recipients of the King's Awards to congratulate them on behalf of this council. Item 4, declarations of interest. The monitoring officer has provided advice to all members and relevant guidance has been issued. Members are asked to consider relevant interests for the purpose of this meeting, and if there are any interests declared, members must leave the room during the relevant item if appropriate. Should you wish to make a declaration, please fill out the form on page 43 of your agenda and return this to the Democratic Services Officer at the end of the meeting. Item 5, update from Cabinet portfolio holders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to provide a brief update to members on areas within my portfolio. Members will recall my November briefing, which related to knife harm reduction. Wigan is pioneering a holistic, evidence-led approach, can now report further progress. We now operate 8 knife deposit bins, including 3 at our recycling centres. By November, I collected 551 items, including over 400 kitchen knives, swords, machetes and imitation firearms. With the next empties now due, the total is expected to exceed 800. Knife exchange and community safety measures. Our knife exchange scheme is now firmly established, and the Stop the Bleed programme has trained more than 300 people and has already been credited with saving a life. We continue to gain strong regional support with the GM Mayor, Deputy Mayor and the Greater Manchester Violence Reduction Unit working with us to support the wider rollout across the Greater Manchester region. Domestic abuse. Our IDVA service remains a core strength, supporting 235 high-risk cases and securing 7 domestic abuse protection orders, including one with positive requirements attached. The Be Like Ruby campaign has reached 7,800 people, with 65 direct engagements generated through the digital platform. Training refreshes for primary care and public health colleagues continue to strengthen early identification. Antisocial behaviour. Positive trends. As shared previously, we continue to see encouraging improvements. Neighbour nuisance in the private sector is down 28%, and private sector noise complaints are down 25%, driven by stronger triage and early intervention measures. There are, however, still challenges within our council tenanted related services, with neighbour nuisance complaints up by 11%. To address this, we have enhanced coordination with housing teams, accelerated tenancy checks in hotspots, and introduced additional leadership capacity to maintain oversight and case throughput. Building on this, I'm pleased to update members that our new borough-wide antisocial behaviours dashboard is on track to go live in late February. This tool will integrate GMP and Council ASB data, allowing ward-level analysis of emerging themes and hotspots. It will support better resource deployment, intelligence-led enforcement and improved partnership coordination. Madam Mayor, organised crime groups, OCGs and Operation Slope. Members, alongside our ASB work, will continue to invest significant effort in tackling serious organised crime. You will recall that we have been working intensively in schools through Operation Slope, a targeted multi-agency approach to OCG-linked activity. I can confirm that this model has delivered strong early results, including 16 arrests, 5 warrants executed, a full closure at 59 Brookhouse, enforcement and possession action at associated addresses, noticeable disruption with displacement now monitored in Crompton House and Eccleston Street. Operation Slope is not stopping, but is now a more overt phase, with a collection of partnership activities being undertaken, including environmental changes, through removal of overgrown vegetation to reduce opportunities for concealment, and active enforcement against those tenants causing most harm. What is particularly important is that this approach is now being replicated in 2 further areas of the borough, under Operation Comfrey and Operation Inch, targeting similar patterns of organised criminality. These operations are still maturing, and I hope to update members on outcomes at the proper time. But please be assured there is significant partnership activity underway across this borough, with police, community resilience teams, housing, probation and other partners working together to address some of the most serious aspects of organised crime. This is a sustained and coordinated effort, and it reflects our commitment to protecting communities and dismantling criminal influence at neighbourhood level. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to make a couple of comments on my area of responsibility, which is adult social care. So, just for information for members, for all members, at the beginning of December, we had CQC doing an assessment of our adult social care services. The government, a couple of years ago, determined that every adult social care local authority would be inspected by CQC over the following 2 years. And last year, the timescale on that was the end of December. So we were literally one of the last local authorities to be inspected by CQC. We've not had the outcome of that, and that will probably be able to be reported at the next council meeting. But certainly the indication I got from the inspectors that were here, I am confident that this authority will at least be rated as good. I have hopes for better, but certainly this authority will be rated as good. The other issue is, 18 years ago today, this council in adult social care set up its reablement team. 5 members of staff, one of whom was Catherine Robinson, who managed that service. It's his birthday today. They can now drink. They're 18 years old. They can do what they like. But what's really important is now that team has grown from 5 staff 18 years ago today to 120 staff. It was the first reablement service in the country that was rated as outstanding by CQC. It retained the outstanding grading when CQC returned to reassess it. And what we've seen is the number of people who, about 85% of people who've had reablement services off this council have had no ongoing long-term need for social care. Over those years, thousands of people in this borough who've had reablement services have gained more independence, been able to stay at home longer, and had much improvement and better lives living through the success of this team. And I think, and Catherine Robinson's still the service manager for early intervention, her commitment, motivation and enthusiasm has been the real driver behind this team. And actually what it's created is a real better lives for people in this borough, to ensure that they don't have long-term care needs, that they can stay at home for longer. And I think it's been a brilliant achievement, and it's an achievement that's not been managed in many other authorities. So I just thought, as it's their birthday, I'd just mention the great job that our reablement team has done to the people of this, for the people of this borough. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, it gives me great pleasure, and not without a little satisfaction, to inform Council this evening that Wigan Council has been ranked as one of the best performing councils, both nationally and regionally, putting it in the top 11%, that is, one of only 16 councils nationally, for maintaining its highway infrastructure to a high standard. This has been highlighted by the Department for Transport through its road condition survey, which attested to the good maintenance and preventive investment undertaken by Wigan Council, rather than a reactive one in maintaining its roads. In short, Madam Mayor, Wigan Council has been credited with doing very good work in this area, often exceeding national averages for quality due to its policy of proactive maintenance, meaning that Wigan has achieved green status as one of the best performing councils on the government's assessment map for road maintenance, indicating high performance in road upkeep. And as the DFT has said, the future funding will be linked to performance in order to encourage councils to use taxpayers' money efficiently, to repair and maintain their roads prior to major road defects forming. Whilst realistically this isn't always entirely possible, using the available funding we prioritise long-term network resilience by assessing roads for early deterioration, to apply fixes such as surface dressing, rather than waiting until more costly interventions are needed. We align with the principle that prevention is better than cure. The Minister for Transport, Heidi Alexander, said that areas were assessed on 3 factors: the condition of the road, the level of investment being put in, and the extent to which the local authority was using best practice and providing value for money. It would seem that Wigan Council meet those criteria. I don't say that. The Department for Transport says that. Madam Mayor, our thanks is due to our highways team, who do a great job, often unsung, often criticised by the same voices, and often wrongly. Yet national recognition is well deserved. This Council's policy of prevention and investment is a direct result of decisions taken by our senior leadership team some time ago, with the leader of the Council at its head, who had the foresight to initiate a policy of practical investment in our highways. Madam Mayor, this shows that policy decisions to have been the right decision. It allows the Council to use taxpayers' money wisely and effectively. I will take this opportunity to underline that we also react to 99% of those emergency highway problems reported to us in less than the required timescale of 24 hours. We are and should be extremely proud of this accolade, and remember that this Council has had to endure a decade and a half of cuts by the then Tory government, but despite this has and will always seek to, as the Minister said, use taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently to provide some of the best maintained roads for its citizens in the country. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Firstly, can I thank colleagues who made the time to come to the Housing Revenue Account workshop, which took place a couple of weeks ago. And I hope that the session helped explain the complexities of managing the Housing Revenue Account and its many competing priorities that must be balanced to keep the housing services running effectively. And I think this session was particularly valuable for councillors, tenants and officers to have that opportunity to discuss these challenges openly and explore how decisions are made within the tightly ring-fenced account. In meeting some of the tenants, I think you've probably recognised from when you met them that they have a very detailed understanding of the housing revenue account and what it means to operate within a budget that comes almost exclusively from tenants' rents. And they have extensive knowledge of the competing priorities on this budget. Now, their insight and lived experiences highlight how much pressure there are on the housing revenue accounts, and it's reinforced the importance of making informed and transparent decisions to ensure tenants' homes are maintained and services are sustained and are consistent for the long term. As you will know, I've said many times in this chamber, we are all passionate and determined that the tenants are very firmly at the heart that everything is done from a housing service perspective and beyond. And we are the custodians of the housing revenue account, and the council must maintain safe, decent homes for tenants across the borough, including repairs, routine maintenance, building safety checks and compliance with modern standards. Now, it was clear throughout the workshop that without regular increases in rents, the councils and other registered social providers struggle to keep pace with inflation, rising material costs and higher contractor wages. And over this time, it can lead to delays on the repairs and deterioration in living conditions, which ultimately has an impact on the tenants. Rent income is also essential for long-term investment in housing stock. And as previously mentioned, many of our social homes were built decades ago, and they really do require major works and repairs, such as roof replacements, installation upgrades, heating system renewals, and certainly fire safety improvements. So this is to ensure that tenants do have a safe and warm homes. And these are not one-off expenses, they're part of an ongoing cycle of renewing and upgrading across the borough, which is important for our tenants. Now, during the workshop, it was outlined that sustainable rent levels help to protect housing services in the long run. Some of that we've not sadly had with previous governments. We haven't had that continuity. And the policy has absolutely impacted detrimentally to the HRA, the Housing Revenue Account, to the tune of over £30 million, and that's an ongoing problem that we've had. So we've got £30 million less in our budgets than we would have had this time because of the way that the government changed the policy without giving good notice. Now, this government is committed to giving clear direction and has put a formula for rent increases so that we can have some understanding and certainty, which is now allowing our teams and tenants to have a stable income that they can plan, respond quickly to repairs and invest in improved energy efficiency, reducing tenants' bills and improving their comfort. Of course, affordability must always be considered carefully when rent rises are often necessary to ensure social housing remains safe, well maintained and fit for future generations. This is something that members of the Housing Advisory Panel, and in particular the tenants, are very conscious of. And I hope this was recognised by everybody that attended the workshop, that they were very clear that they understood there needed to be rent rises in order to do the jobs and the work that we need to do from a housing perspective. And it was clearly and widely accepted that we're all driven to give them the best possible service for our tenants, and so that they have that warm, comfortable, sound and safe home for their families. So thanks once again to you coming along to the workshop, but also thanks to the tenants who took the time to do that and all their involvement in the Housing Advisory Panel. And all of this has actually gone through the Housing Advisory Panel, and thank you for the support that you have and the teams that service all of the tenant services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it was the 9th of January, which is a couple of Fridays ago, that we were privileged, I was certainly privileged, to be at an AI round table in the Civic, where a number of people had come together, particularly people who were involved in technology and in technology companies, were coming to Wigan to talk about AI and the impact that AI will have in the future of all organisations.
But the thing I wanted to highlight, and I know there has been coverage both in the local press and the national press, that Agilicis have announced that they are moving their headquarters from London to Wigan. That is a magnificent kind of statement to say Wigan is on the map in terms of what we want to do with future technology in this borough. It was announced on the day, but it's all the work that's gone on prior to that meeting on the 9th of January, where Councillor Raymond and her team in Technology and Finance have worked so hard along with Agilicis to get this over the line. It was truly a significant step for us as a borough, and I believe it's a significant step for Agilicis. Certainly the jobs that will be on offer in the future, high technology jobs, will suit our ambition for a lot of our people and young people in particular in this borough. So thank you to Councillor Raymond and her team for getting this over the line, because it is a significant step, and it's one of the first steps that will see more and more people with technology-focused businesses come into the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Item 6A, vacancies on committees. Following changes to the Council's political balance in November 2025 and in line with Regulation 15 of the Local Government Committees and Political Groups Regulations 1990, the vacant seats on the Licensing and Regulation Committees and the Fair Opportunities for All Progress with Unity Scrutiny Committee remain vacant for a period of 3 weeks, due to the Independents Together group declining to take up their allocated positions on these committees. Following the 3-week period, groups were then invited to make nominations to the vacant seats. The following nominations were received for the vacant seats on the Licensing and Regulation Committees: Councillor J Nicholson, Labour; Councillor R Whittingham, Conservative. As more than one nomination was received for the vacant seats, the Council is now required to vote on those nominations. So, members, all those in favour of Councillor Nicholson being appointed to the vacant seats, please show. Thank you. All those in favour of Councillor Whittingham being appointed to the vacant seats, please show. Thank you. Councillor Nicholson is appointed to the vacant seat on the Licensing and Regulation Committees. The following nominations were received for the vacant seat on the Fair Opportunities for All Progress with Unity Scrutiny Committee: Councillor L Moffat, Reform UK; Councillor J Talbot, Labour. Again, as more than one nomination was received for the vacant seat, the Council is now required to vote on those nominations. So I ask all those in favour of Councillor Moffat being appointed to the vacant seat, please show. All those in favour of Councillor Talbot being appointed to the vacant seat, please show. Thank you, members. Councillor Talbot is appointed to the vacant seat on the Progress with Unity Scrutiny Committee. Item 6B, dates and times of meetings 2026 to 27. The Council is requested to approve the timetable of meetings for the 2026-27 municipal year, as set out in the report from page 49 of the agenda. I invite the Leader to move the recommendations. Leader.
Happy to move, Madam Mayor.
Are the recommendations seconded?
Back to second, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Leader, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Do any other members wish to speak? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam. I was talking to a resident a couple of months ago, and he was asking about council meetings. And when I mentioned the legality of being a councillor and how you had to make a meeting every 6 months, and that meetings was every 2 months, the shock in the resident's face really told the story. They couldn't believe that their elected officials only meet every 2 months with how many important things take place between that period in Wigan. And that got me thinking, given now that we're limited to so many questions, we're limited to so many motions, a group like mine with 4 councillors can't even put a motion in. We've had one waiting over a year. Do we not think the time has come where, as a council, we should really be meeting once every month? We live in a very complicated world with everything changing and serious issues all the time, and we have so many problems here in Wigan. I think we should be here as much as possible, Madam debating the problems on behalf of our residents, not here less, which seems to happen every year. Thank you.
Yeah, I will, because one of the things that I know all councillors across this chamber actively support and actually work very hard in committees all through the year. And I think it's rather addressed that some members don't want to be on committees. And I'm more than happy to move the schedule that we've got before us tonight. Thank you.
Those in favour of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The vote is carried. As is usual, Democratic Services will send meeting requests for the relevant meetings to be placed in your calendars once the allocation of committee places has been determined at the Council AGM in May. Item 6C, Local Authority Governor's Report. The Council is requested to approve the nominations for the Local Authority Governor vacancies and reappointments as set out in the report at page 57 of the agenda. I invite the Leader to move the recommendations.
Happy to move, Madam Mayor.
Are the recommendations seconded?
I'd like to second, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Leader, would you like to speak now? Do any other members wish to contribute? Back to you, Deputy Leader. Leader, anything else? All those in favour then of accepting the recommendations as set out in the report, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The vote is carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And before we go through the rest of the business, Madam Mayor, I would like to move a motion without notice, 10K, to suspend the rule on procedure 14.3 in relation to voting by the show of hands. And I request that all remaining items on this agenda are subject to a recorded vote.
Does anybody wish to speak? No. Right, we'll take a vote that from now on in this meeting, the votes will be recorded. All those for, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The vote is carried. Item 7A, Housing Revenue Account Rent Setting for 2026-27. The Council is requested to consider the report set out at page 63 of the Council agenda, which outlines the proposed annual uplift to council dwellings, garage rents and service charges from the 1st of April 2026. The report was also considered and endorsed by the Housing Advisory Panel at its meeting on the 16th of December 2025, by the Cabinet at its meeting on the 18th of December 2025, and by the Fair Opportunities for All Progress with Unity Scrutiny Committee at the Cabinet meeting to which they were invited, also on the 18th of December 2025. Excuse me. the Council is requested to approve the proposed annual uplift to council dwellings, garage rents and service charges, and from the 1st of April 2026. I invite Councillor Raymond to move the recommendations. Councillor Raymond.
Pleased to move, Madam Mayor.
Seconding, Madam Mayor. I reserve my right. Thank you.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing the report to the Chamber. I was at the Housing Revenue account the other day. It was quite enlightening. But I know from the report, it says 79% of the people, residents, won't be affected by the rent increase. But that leaves 21% of people who will be affected and will struggle at finding an extra 250 odd, £300 a year, plus whatever council tax raise you put on them. So, looking, when you drill down into these figures, there's quite a lot there that I think we could actually recoup on. I mean, anyone who's read this report can see the cost on void repairs, the repeat repairs, day-to-day repairs. We've got to start finding out why these figures keep going up, which maybe we can keep rents lower than what they are. The easy answer seems to be raise rents, but we still have got these problems. And it's year on year that we have these. I know Councillor Gamble is doing quite a lot behind the scenes, and it's commendable. But we really need to get these figures down and keep rents down. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this now. It's a good report, this, and I attended the Cabinet and Scrutiny Committee in joint meeting a few weeks ago, and for me it's what's not in the report in terms of interest, loans and debt. So we requested those figures. Now, current debt for the housing revenue account is £308 million. And yes, that also includes the £100 million loan from 2012, which should and really needs to be written off by national government, and I know the council's pushing that. But within the next couple of years, up to 2028, we're planning to borrow an extra £78 million. And what's quite alarming about this, in the year 2027-2028, we're going to borrow an extra £37 million whilst paying back £26 million in debt repayment and also paying interest of £11 million. So for me, it's almost like you're paying off your credit card or getting a payday loan to pay off the loan you've already got. It's not sustainable going forward. So in a shortfall, over this 30-year period within the debt repayment plan, we're going to be paying back in excess of £600 million, and that's before any future borrowing is going to occur within the housing revenue account. So going back to the report itself, under 3.3 it states that we've got national commitments to reduce carbon emissions, which will have a substantial capital investment requirement. So yet again, are we borrowing for net zero madness? And remember, we're under no legal obligation for net zero. The last net zero climate crisis report from this council stated it's only damage of reputational risks if we scrap net zero. Then we must look at the commitment to housing. And from a report I read recently, in the past 10 years we've built 800 social houses. But in the same time frame, we lost 2,300 houses within that period. And for those of you who are interested, the last time we had a Labour government for those 13 years, this council lost 6,000 of our housing stock. So for me, it's a long-term strategic failure, and the only people who are suffering are our residents who need council houses. Then we must look at the cost pressures within the housing revenue account, which is going to cost next year an extra £6.5 million. And this is through successive failures of government, uncontrolled borrowing, which puts up inflation. And then we've got to look at the national insurance employees' contributions, which are putting up costs and delivery of services. And as Councillor Gerard alluded to there, It states in the report only 79% of claimants or tenants are on full or partial claimants of universal credit or housing benefit. What about the 4,000 families who are hard-working families who are on low incomes, who are part of the alarm clock generation, who are getting up, contributing and working? Many of these are single-parent households, and it's going to hit them the hardest with the cost of living. And then finally, garage rents. From the report, we have 1,512 garages, which of 726 are unoccupied. Going by last year's figures, we have lost in revenue £308,000 per year. We're turning assets of these garages into liabilities. It's a bad business model. People want these garages, and because they've been left there in a state of disrepair, it's going to cost the HRA money to get them up to speed. So because of the aforementioned and the excess debt, which is exceeding £500 million within these figures, which the Finance Department very kindly providing me, how can we vote for this? The council's already £500 million in debt. So combined with the HRA, this council is almost £1 billion in debt, and it's not financially sustainable. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If this council was a business, it would have been liquidated long ago. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Draper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. First of all, Councillor Gambles, I did attend the seminar that you had. It was really good, very interesting. There's quite a few councillors there as well. But I will be voting against the rent increase of 4.8% due to the outstanding repairs and voids being way behind. And that's the only reason I've always voted, not really wanting to, but following the party line. Well, I'm not this time. I feel as a tenant living in rented accommodation for 65 years, we have let our tenants down in many ways, that we have not met the statutory requirements, decent home standards and homes that are not being maintained to a decent home standards, ensuring that homes are safe, secure and in good repair. We have broken the tenants' agreement, and that is why I can't vote for this. I don't feel that we've kept the tenants' agreement. I think that we broke it time and time again. I know it's a national problem. It is not just here. I'm not saying that. It is a national problem, but somebody's got to stick up for these people, and it's going to be me. The government commitments ensuring 1.5 million homes are built before 2029. It is not on schedule. There are still no details on the Social and Affordable Homes programme. So far, only 117,000 new build has been done. That's another 1,383,000 to go before 2029. I think that's a really, really high target to do, and upgrades are needed in our council stock. And Councillor Watson, I don't know if this is right or not, but we did have originally, Councillor Gambles will know, we had over 31,000 in stock, and at the moment I think it's between 20 and 21 left. So the right to buy, which I've been going on about for years and years and years, needs to come in. It's banned, it's scrapped in Scotland, it's scrapped in Wales, and it should be scrapped here. And I don't see why a Labour government cannot do that. We need funding from central government. We need a lot of funding to get these social housings built. The amount of money paid to tenants who have made claims to the council via solicitors have never been mentioned in any report, and I know that they have. I don't know how much that total has come to, because I never saw it when I was on the audit either. Now, as a member of the Housing Advisory Panel, I think I am, I hope to work with the officers, and by the way, the officers I've known for a long, long time. The two officers who actually took the seminar was actually really, really good, to improve the issues, the tables of the amount of rents, in my case, is not right. It says that mine is £99 a week. It isn't, it's more. So and the survey as well, Councillor Gambles, on there, it has to improve, because it's very low percentage that listen to the tenants and other things on there as well. The staff are good, and they are. I can't say that they're not, but the figures are wrong on that. I think Councillor Watson has spoke on the garages. I think that is complete waste of money. They're in massive disrepair as well. I do agree with that, so I'll be voting against. Thank you.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones.
So when we get right down to it, the question we've got to ask is, with near 5% increase on the rent, are tenants getting a better value for money? And the answer is, and I know all the backbench Labour councillors, they might not admit it publicly, but you know because you're getting the same reports off your residents as I am, especially when the winter comes. And that's why I want to talk about, one, the big problem, why rent's going up, and that's the fact because we actually commission a lot of our work out. Rather than use contractors that bill monthly, we give one-off payments, especially when it comes down to plumbing and heating, one-off payment for 20,000 properties. That means that these private companies who are guessing how much work they're going to undertake, they're going to go millions and millions over to make sure they're not going to lose out. Now, that's one problem. But another problem that has identified itself even more so over the last few weeks is these companies that we're commissioning is, are they up to the task? Are they up to the contract that they've actually signed? So over the last month, Madam Mayor, I've been involved in 2 cases. The first one, as of last week, was an 83-year-old woman was waiting 11 days to have a heating put back on. They was ringing day in, day out. Now, I've raised this with the relevant officers and the Cabinet member. Unfortunately, the Cabinet member hasn't got back to me, but if you did have involvement in getting it sorted, I do thank you. Now, when they spoke to this company, I'll not name the company, they was told that they only have one engineer in the borough for emergency work. So in the middle of winter, when people's boilers are going down right, left and centre, this company that we're commissioning and paying millions of pounds to only have one emergency person. That tells me that these people are signing up to these big contracts and don't have the manpower to deal with it. And that's why this winter, worse than any other year, we've seen more and more people suffering without heating for so long. Now, the other one, which is a bit more complicated, was, and Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Marler have also been involved in this, we had a resident who'd been waiting 3 months without, and the leader got involved, thank you, I appreciate that as well. 3 months they'd had no heating. And that puzzled me, because the council do push the companies to get it done. And I wouldn't believe that anyone in Wigan Council would leave somebody 3 months. And when I spoke to the resident, I asked them the question, I said, do you have a heat pump by any chance? And they said, yeah. And that was, I knew straight away what the answer was. When we started these aims to cut CO2 emissions by using heat pumps rather than gas, the problem was it was like the Wild West. Private companies started coming up right, left and centre to get the government funding, claiming they could do the heat pumps. The problem was, when we pilot schemed it, these companies didn't know how to do it proper. Rather than put the big water tank in and the giant radiators, they basically just stuck the heat pumps in. This person had been waiting for 3 months because we didn't have a single contact in the council for anyone who could actually fix it. There was one person who is backed up with all the different companies, the only person he claims in the North West who can actually fix this point. They had to order the part from the Netherlands to come. So what happened to this resident was, they couldn't switch it back to gas now, too much work had been done. They didn't know how to fix it. They was left with 3 months without hot water and gas. Now, I'm sure each and every one of you in here would agree that that just simply isn't on. And that's because we're going down this ideology of global warming, which may be man-made or may not. I'm not a scientist, but what I do know is it shouldn't be at the extent of our residents suffering. I think we should seriously look at, by 2030, having heat pumps put into all council properties. What we need to do more than ever is look after our residents who are going through hard times. We shouldn't be putting the rent up unless we're offering a better service. And I have asked for an investigation to be done. Because if we're commissioning a company millions and millions of pounds a year, we need to know that that company has an army of people who can be called out by the next day to fix somebody's boiler. And I do hope that the leader or the cabinet member can make sure that these accusations are looked into and we re-look at our contracts. Because you are right, what Councillor Draper said before, the inspectors who work for the council, they are pushing the contractors. The people who answer the phones directly to the tenants are. Susan Gamble is very passionate, but if we don't have the right contractors in place, it doesn't matter what we do here, that needs seriously looking into. So I will be voting against any rent increase unless services are done much better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. We're here again at this time of year where we all have to vote on rent increases. I don't think anybody in this chamber really wants to vote on rent increases, but do we want to vote on improved services, repairs? I know Councillor Jones has just mentioned two, but overall, we have a very high percentage of repairs that are done on time, every time. Not just repairs, we have to make sure all our properties are health and safety compliant and looking after our residents. The HRA account that Councillor Watson mentioned is actually ring-fenced. It can only be spent on housing. It can't be put with the council main budget, which I'm sure you know that anyway. So yeah, it is difficult. As a council, our properties, I feel the majority are in really good shape. We get all our repairs done. If we look at the private sector rents are far in excess of ours. How many residents you get coming to see you that say, oh no, I want a council house, I don't want to do private rented. So why none of us want to actually increase the rent? We have to increase the rent. We need to keep these houses in good repair. We need to make sure they're fit for purpose for our residents. So I will be supporting the motion tonight, and I hope most of you will support this motion so that we can give all our tenants a good state of housing. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor O'Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak. I do appreciate sometimes there have to be rent rises because you do have to pay for your properties, but you have to make sure you are giving a good service. And I myself have experienced a couple of tenants, elderly people, who've gone without heating for 2 weeks, hot water. It's not acceptable. I've also had people living in the flats with no lift working for a length of time in one of, not the high-rise, some other flats. They're housebound, they can't get out without that lift. I really think 8 weeks is totally unacceptable for that. Also, as Councillor has mentioned about rent, who are paying them, only 20% are paying that rent. And I think, is there any way we could waive the increase for those who are actually paying the full rent? Because we get the money anyway from the government, but we don't want to penalise the ones who's actually contributing, probably on a low income, and it may make a difference to them. If there was any way of doing that, I don't know. Thank you.
Councillor Brearley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I've got to sit down. I've got something wrong with my legs. In any business, you should always look at the expenditure. Not putting your rents up, not doing this, not doing that. It's about the expenditure. You generate £111 million in rents. The expenditure of repairs is £17.1 million. So that's £92 million. Where does it go? Because I've asked for a breakdown and I've not got it yet. So obviously I won't prepare for this meeting now. Now, it seems like we, or the department, just allows contractors to walk in, no checks are made, no checks about who signs the work off, who allocates the work, who assesses the work. We don't have a chance of that. It's all done by contractors. And a number of residents within the housing panel, they keep bringing this up time and time and time again. But yet, you don't listen to what we say. You don't even act on it, look into it. Look at your own private house. would you pay a contractor to come in your house and do whatever they wanted, or would you check them? Well, it's exactly the same with our tenants. We as councillors should be checking these contractors and see what they're doing. I've come across a complaint yesterday. I received a complaint from a council house estate in Plank Lane. I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. It's the one on the Bad Bend. Anyway, the concerned residents there, all of them, they've signed a petition, sent the petition in, and I've forwarded it on to the planning officer and the land and property development. Now, there's 3 plots of land there they're going to sell off without the consultancy, the chat with the residents. They don't want the land to be sold off. There's no play areas for kids. Plus, if you're going to build some council houses, you've got the land, so you don't need to pay for the land. You've got it. And we should be using the money from the Wigan Metropolitan Investment Limited, where a couple of these councillors in this room sit on a board as directors, and there's £20 million in that pot. There's 3 other organisations, similar name. And, you know, that's not being touched. It's just being added to every year. So why are you putting money in that organisation? Get the money spent, build the council houses, but it's a start. Get revenue coming in. And then you said to them, any new houses being built now will not be for sale. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Nobody else, is there? No. Back to you, Councillor Gamble, as a seconder.
I've only got 5 minutes, so it's going to be a whistle-stop tour, but at the same time I will actually respond to everybody in the room if I do actually run out of time, so that you've actually got that. Just to let you know, I'll just reiterate, the tenants have been involved very much in this process. They recognise that the housing revenue account actually needs to be buoyant in order to do all of the work that's being proposed over the next few years. We are currently doing a business plan, an interim business plan, but we're going to be actually having a 10-year business plan after that, so we'll be involved in that. Just letting you know, for the repairs so far, we've done 63,979. We're on target to do more than that. The completion of voids over the last 3 quarters, we've done 1,187. New kitchens has been 975. Boiler replacement last year was 2,163. We're on target this year to do 2,157. New tenancies is 1,381. Doors replaced 1,682. New windows 2,205. You already had loads of policies come through this chamber. You're going to have a lot more. You're going to have 5 more tonight as well. We've actually done 444 new builds, and some of those will be in the works at the moment. One of the things that I'll just very quickly, I'll take each person for each point. Councillor Gerrard, one of the things you've, and I think Councillor Draper also mentioned this, in respect of some of our tenants who are not on benefits. What I would say to you is that we have got the income maximisation team. We coordinate. If there's people who are struggling, we're making sure that people are actually getting the benefits they're entitled to. Over 14 million has actually been raised so far in that respect. That collectively, if you actually just give it a broad brush of lifetime span, it's well over 40 million. But what I would say to you is that the rent intake, our rent which we collect, we've actually got 99.8% collection rate. It's unheard of. But that's because we support tenants who are in difficulty. We actually make them a priority in order to help and assist so that they can pay the bills. Not just the rent, but everything else as well that they've got. So I hope that gives you a bit of an inkling there. Councillor Watson, I think I'm going to defer to my colleague on the financial side of it. I'm not quite sure that we've got different figures to that, but anyway, I'll defer to that. I think you mentioned garages, though. You talked about the energy and everything else. Passive house at the moment, we've suspended some of that work. We were actually doing, we're looking into it to see about the impact of it. But with the energy efficiency, it is actually true. It's insulation, it's roof repairs, it's actually making sure that people have got the right central heating, so that we are actually assisting with the tenants' bills, so they're reducing those. So that's quite a bit of work that's ongoing. You mentioned low-income families and the sort of thing. Councillor Draper, thank you. You mentioned about the voids and repairs. I think I just mentioned about some of the things that we do from a repairs and a voids perspective. I'm with you. I want to build more and more, and I'm absolutely, we are committed to do that as a council. We have been one of the few people in the country, councils in the country, that's been really active in our social housing, and we've actually got a number of things on site at the moment. We're doing a lot of refurbishment in our sheltered accommodation, providing the support for them. That's ongoing. We've got some schemes lined up as well that we're going to be going on site onto shortly. So I was talking to an officer only today, and he can't wait to get his teeth into it. So we're moving forward with that. Upgrades, right to buy. Again, we talked about it in this chamber. I used to... Oh, sorry, I'll have to be quick. Right, so I think we're all on the same page on right to buy. Councillor Jones, let me have a look at it. Hang on, I'm trying to read my own writing now. With the boilers, we've actually got a new contractor now from the boiler perspective, and that's actually getting far better traction. So we've got some good ones there. And we've also got 2 staff members in that organisation who can do heat pumps. So there's that. And let's see, Councillor Byrne. Stop the clock! Stop the clock!
Councillor Jones.
So that is the contractor for both of them 2 jobs you're referring to. So,
okay.
Thank you.
So they are new. They've only just taken up, but we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up. That's fine. What have I got left? Oh, hang on. Right. Okay. So what I would say, as Councillor Byrne, services, we'll pick up about the low income. I think I've covered some of the answers for you there about the low incomes and everything. Councillor Breeley, we do actually do due diligence on all of our contractors. As it happens, we're now working on a new framework, and we're working trying to get more local contractors involved. As you know, we've also got the depot.
Sorry, Councillor Gamble.
I will write to you. I'll write you all. So,
Councillor Raymond to sum up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor O'Byrne and Councillor Gerrard, yes, you raise a very valid concern about the 21% who will be paying the rent increase. And for that, I would say that we have a generous welfare offer and income maximisation scheme that has brought more than £10 million last year to people's pockets. So please, I would urge all members in this chamber to refer people who are going through financial difficulties or who have low income to come to us and to avail that offer. Councillor Jones, we are increasing the rent, and that decision hasn't been taken lightly. But we have increased the rent by only under 5%. But if you look at the private sector rentals, they are increasing their rents by more than 7.2 to 7.8%, which is a lot higher than what we are doing. They have increased the rents by so much that they are actually, the private rental sector has priced people out of privately renting their houses. So I'm really proud that we have a healthy stock, and we are investing in more and more better housing, healthier housing and more social housing. Councillor Watson, thank you for ringing the alarm bells on the financial viability of our HRA. But I would like to calm your nerves and reassure you that things are very different. Number one, we are borrowing, but we are borrowing against the value of our stock, which is really healthy, and we are within our limits. Number two, you know and I know that the councils, local authorities, is not a business, so we cannot be liquidated. Number three, the debt of £76 million that you mentioned is for our overall budget. It's not for HRA. You mentioned a lot of numbers and a lot of percentages to create a picture of doom and gloom, but I would like to say that you do not realise that we have willingly shared those numbers and percentages to be upfront and to be transparent with our members and with our residents. There is no doom and gloom. We are doing a great job. We are dealing with our issues head-on, and I would like to say a huge thank you to Councillor Gambles and her team for the hard work and commitment that they put into this. Thank you.
Members, it's now time to vote. Please use your consoles to vote. Sorry. 7B, Housing Tenancy Policies. The Council is requested to consider the report set out at page 73 of the Council agenda, which requests approval for the implementation of a number of policies to enable the Council to deliver services aligned with the regulator's standards and maintain high levels of tenant satisfaction and regulatory compliance. The report was also considered and endorsed by the Housing Advisory Panel at its meeting on the 16th of December 2025 and by the Cabinet at its meeting on the 18th of December 2025. The Council is requested to approve the following policies within this report: tenancy management, neighbourhood management, tenancy fraud, tenancy sustainment, communal areas, fire safety, housing. And I invite Councillor Gambles to move the recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting me to speak. It wouldn't be a council meeting, would it, without a housing policies coming through? So I've got another 5 for you now. I think we've had well over 10 so far throughout the year. And for me, it's just demonstrating how much work is ongoing and what's taking place. So we've got a further 5 policies, and I'm just going to very quickly, and just to let you know, all of the tenants have been involved in this. It's not just been the Housing Advisory Panel members. We've got numbers of groups of our tenants who are actually working behind the scenes, challenging us, saying what they're wanting to have included in these policies, and it's gone through a very rigorous process. It's gone through the Readers' Panel, and every single one has actually had the endorsement of the Readers' Panel, as well as other groups as well. So what I'll do, I'll just very quickly whiz through. Tenancy management policy, I think this just demonstrates how far we've come when the services have actually become collective as a department. So it's bringing together a focus and support for what we've got for the tenants, a greater involvement and a stronger voice. So that's for the tenancy management policy. I'll answer questions at the end, obviously. It's just giving you a flavour. You've all read them, obviously. So in great detail, I'm sure. Neighbourhood management policy, it's just a comprehensive approach to the collective responsibility of the council and of the tenants. Tenancy fraud policy, well, it speaks for itself. And some people, unfortunately, have had or been allocated a home with false information. So, and there's other things as well that we'll be doing. That also will be strengthened with the allocations policy as well, which you approved, I think, at the last meeting, maybe in the meeting before. Tenancy sustainability policy, it's really outlining how we can support people if they're struggling. We don't want people to have a difficulty when the tenancy. It might be a variety of different ways, but of course we actually link in all of our teams and our agency support, other organisations in support of us. And then there's finally, is the communal area policy. It's basically being a good neighbour. It's actually giving clarity of, what's needed to keep people safe and comfortable. Those are the policies. I hope that you're able to approve those. As I say, they've actually gone through a rigorous process and challenge from tenants, as well as their own input and suggestions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Are the recommendations seconded?
They're seconded, Madam Mayor, and I reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to contribute? Councillor Jones.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. So this is quite a good one for me to bring something up that I passionately care about, and I'm sure a Cabinet member will as well also. So it's something I've tried bringing in on a motion, which is kind of still at the back of the queue, but until the political balance changes, it's never going to get through. So I'll bring it up here. When it comes to people moving in and the bullet points for help and support and allocations, can I ask the Cabinet member to seriously consider what my motion was and Councillor Myler's? And it was that when people are signing a tenancy to move into a new council house, can we at the very, very minimum provide flooring and an oven, something we don't currently do? Now, if I may, let me elaborate on why that's so important. Many people getting to council house for the first time are really, really struggling. It could be in all sorts of situations. They could be homeless and have nothing. And let's say they have children and they're moving to an house with no flooring in and no white goods. What do you think happens then? Then they end up with social services. Yeah. So on one hand, they think they're making a step forward, and at the same time, they're taking a step back. So when they end up going to these pay-weekly carpets, where they end up paying massively over the odds. One of the other options would be to properly look at the council houses in between tenancies. If there's a carpet down there that's suitable, or wooden flooring, or there's white goods that we can test and make sure it's safe, let's leave them in and give people a fighting chance to start. I have many disagreements with the Labour Party, and I'll never be one of your voters. But one thing I will say about Labour councillors is, I think when it comes to council tenants, I think you genuinely care about people who are struggling and people at the bottom of the ladder. So I hope it's not something you can, wish into existence, but if it's something that we could possibly speak about and look at the possibility, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Draper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I'm sorry, Councillor Gambles. I am not going to vote against. I'm going to abstain. I know everybody's trying their best. I do understand that, but I'm very passionate about socialising. When I sat over there, I was talking about this all the time. We are improving the services, but when you go out there and you talk to tenants and the amount of emails I get, and I know others in here get it as well, and I've gone through the same thing myself recently, it isn't good enough. I can't sit here as a tenant and say everything's fine. It is getting better. We are listening. We are trying our best. We need funding. And the only funding we can get is from the Labour government. If we have 14 years of austerity from the Tories, which we have and had, now it's the time for the Labour to step up and build more socialising and fund this council because it can do the job. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Now, I'm happy to support these policies, and I see the shock in your face there, Councillor Gambles. But there's no point in having policy unless it's enforceable. Now, my thought process on rules and rule breakers and policy. It's got to be enforceable, otherwise the same people keep getting away with it and we keep moving them on. And the cost of void repairs is astronomical as part of the HRA budget and should be reinvested back into housing stock. Now, there's a couple of things in there. First of all, nuisance pets with dogs, and we all get inundated with dogs and the CRT does its best to enforce that in council properties. But also in terms of the communal areas and estate management. We all go on estate inspections, and we've created a situation at the moment where our flats used to be good people in there. They used to maintain all the communal areas. They were well kept and they were nice places. But over the years, for one reason or another, we've got unsavoury people living in there who do not look after the communal areas. So when myself and my fellow ward councillors who do these estate inspections with the estate wardens and the tenancy officers, we're always picking up these faults and they say it's not our responsibility. And with this documentation, it does state it's the residents' responsibility. But going back to these unsavoury people who are living there, they're never going to clean those communal areas. And especially if you've got some decent people up top and then on the bottom floor of the flats, you've got unsavoury people. It's a pigsty. And it's not fair for the tenants living at the top. So there's got to be some sort of enforcement there within those tenancies to put the emphasis more on those tenants, or the council going forward to maintain those areas. But I'm happy to support it. It's just a thought going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gerrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks again, Councillor Gamble, for fetching these reports. It's very much needed. In the past, myself and Councillor Watson and Councillor Hodgkinson have pushed for reports such as this, even though there's already tenancy agreements in place similar to this, which just wasn't enforced. And I think this is the point I'm going to raise, is that it's okay dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but if we're not going to enforce it, it's just a waste of time. It's a wasted exercise. As Councillor Watson says there, we've got people in flats and in houses who've got no gumption at all to look after the property, to look after the communal areas, and that is just bringing the area down and is also blighting the lives of good, hard-working residents. For example, there's a flat in Atherton. The tenants there have been looking after the grounds, the gardens, and an unsavoury guy has come in, not working, on drugs, this, that and the other. And rather than move him, he's only just moved in, they're after moving her, who's been in that property, looking after the gardens and looking after, making it a really nice area, and they're after moving her. It's completely wrong. It's completely the wrong way around. We need to start getting tough on these people who are just bringing ASB and criminality into our neighbourhoods. And we can glam it up no matter how we want, but we have to get to the root cause of why it's happening. Like I said, this document is music to my ears. You know, it's really good, but it's got to be enforced. I'm sick of having meetings now. I've seen to have every few months. I get assured that things are going to happen. They never happen. Nothing gets resolved, and then I'm having to send a snottogram email to whoever to try and get things done and get them sent. I have multiple agency meetings, and we get told, well, it's a complex case. I don't care. It's got to be. You've got to start worrying about the people who are there, have been there, and be of good character, and not blighting them all the time. So, yeah, I welcome this, but it's got to be put in action properly, and not just fanfare. Thank you.
Councillor O'Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak. I'd just like to back really what Councillor Gerrard has said. I have numerous people come to me and say the neighbours are causing an extensive problem. Often it is drug related. I know people have to live somewhere, but sometimes these people, they're a known drug addict, they're a known dealer, and yet they're getting council properties. That has got to stop, and action has got to be taken. I feel for addicts, but they need somewhere separate to live. Some accommodation, just don't stick them in council flats where they're ruining the lives really of a whole block with all the people who's coming in and out. And I'd also like to back Councillor Jones in saying that with council houses, if someone's got a nice bathroom in, why rip it out? Why rip carpets up? If a tenant would be happy to have them, it does seem wasteful to not leave goods in that people are willing to leave. Thank you.
Councillor Braley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question really to Sue Gambles. I've been approached by a number of residents, tenants. They can't get on this residents meeting panel. Now, I know for a fact you're using the same people time and time again. Can you explain why? And by using the same people, you're not getting a true viewpoint of what's going on. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Back to you, Leader, as you reserve the right. Nothing to say. Councillor Gambles, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I'm just trying to... Right, okay. Councillor Jones, you were the first to speak, weren't you? Is he gone? Oh, sorry, I've not got my glasses on. Was he the first person to speak? Right, okay, that's fine. Right, right, okay. The actual proposal that Councillor Jones has mentioned in respect of carpeting and white goods we would have a problem with because of the electricity, and there is the testing, but there is the possibility that it could actually go astray. However, every single person that's offered a tenancy, they go through the budget with them to actually understand what their income is and the ability to pay and the ability to actually kit it out. If there is any issues with that, we get the income maximisation team involved, and then there's other opportunities from that to get certain support for furniture and flooring and white goods. Councillor Draper, let's have a look. I agree with you again about the buildings. In fact, when you're saying about government, we're actually part of a coalition now. I was on the call earlier today. Southwark are leading it, and there's over about 70 local authorities that are involved, which have got council housing properties. And they are putting they're actually working with government. We're going to an event in Leeds in a couple of weeks' time where there's going to be MPs and decision makers, and we're putting a lot of pressure on. One of those is actually putting a stop on the right to buy. I'm trying to find my notes. Then it's also making sure that we are going to be delivering new homes and replacement of the right to buys. And there's also going to try and get rid of the red tape to get the existing funding, and then also make sure that we've got a fair and sustainable financial model. Quite a number of our compadres, I don't know, anyway, quite a number of the local authorities, they're really struggling from a HRA perspective. So they're putting a lot of pressure on. As you know, we've also talked about the fact that the 3.4 million loan that we have, we're putting pressure on government for that. In fact, there's about 20 other local authorities that's got the similar kind of situation as us. So we've talked about that class action. But this consortium is something that's is gaining traction. It's actually making a difference, and it's changing the way that governments are thinking about social housing and getting that support. So I hope that gives you a bit of comfort for that. Councillor Watson, absolutely agree that we need to enforce it, and that's why the policy is in place. If you don't have a policy or you don't have anything in place, how can you enforce it? It's just it's a damp squib, isn't it? So I think some of the reasons sometimes is that people actually don't have the tools with which to do some of the support from the communal areas. The garden, for example, we've got a gardening competition which is growing in momentum, but we've also created areas where you can actually get tools to do some of that work. And we're encouraging in that quite significantly. Again, Councillor Gerard, you mentioned about the enforcement. Of course, we've got the antisocial behaviour policy, which was, as you remember, was approved here. You spoke on it and then just reinforced it the next meeting as well, I think, as I remember. Fanfare, it's no fanfare. It's actually making sure that we've got things in place in order to deliver on behalf of residents, but also enforce it and make sure that we do that. I understand what you're saying. I was actually at the same meeting as you yesterday, wasn't I, about the high rise, and there was issues there which needs to be dealt with, and I can understand why you've brought that out. And then Councillor Brealey, you're saying about the tenants and the panel. We've over 1,000 tenants that's actually involved in quite a lot of our activity. In fact, only today there was a meeting where a number of different people who are wanting to actually get more involved in the Housing Advisory Panel came along to find out a little bit more. But along with that, we've got quite a number of other groups. We've got the Readers Group, we've got other things that the tenants can get involved in. The actual tenants on the Housing Advisory Panel have got a 4-year term. They're voted in on a 4-year term, and they have an ability to have another 4 years after that. So we've actually met quite a number of people this morning, and there's going to be things that we're working with to see that we can actually have either working groups, subgroups. There's quite a lot of activity, so we have a very strong interest from, as I say, over 1,000 tenants have indicated that they want to get more involved in getting involved with the Housing Revenue Account and the Housing Service. Hope that answers your questions. Thank you.
Members, it's now time to vote on this suite of policies, so if you can use the console. Point of order, Councillor Brealey. Sorry, Councillor Braley, that isn't a point of order. I'm sorry, I've not invited you to speak. So if it's a point of order, please could you indicate which law or rule of procedure from the Council's constitution that you feel has been breached, and also outline how this has been breached? That's your point of order. I will take advice, thank you. I'll refer to the monitoring officer, thank you.
Councillor Braley, can I just ask you if you wouldn't mind just repeat your initial query, because I wasn't, just so we're absolutely clear what you're alleging. Thank you.
A contractor. Obviously, if they don't make an interest when we go to the vote, I'm just querying that. Is it correct? Obviously, I don't want to name the person. Anyway, I don't want to. I'll name him after. After the vote, I'll name him.
I don't know.
Declarations of interest are a matter for individuals to declare it. So if any members have an interest, it is for them to decide to declare it. Whether it is an offence or not is dependent on what the nature of the interest is. Having an interest as a contractor might not in any event directly affect the issue under the motion, which is relating to housing policies as opposed to the work of contractors. So it will be a matter for who that individual councillor is to consider whether, if they are employed by the contractors, whether that is an interest that directly relates to the motion that is before members right now.
Thank you. We are in the middle of a vote. If anyone hasn't voted on the suite of policies, can you just double check? We seem to be too short. One more. Okay, the vote is carried. Thank you. Item 8, questions and comments. There are no questions or comments to be considered. Number 9. Councillor Gerard.
I'm just worried there's been quite a few councillors at a meeting before this. I think it'd be quite an apt time to have a comfort break if you don't mind.
Notice of motions. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Merritt, which is set out on page 193 of the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Merritt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak on this motion, which is very close to my heart. I rise today to move the motion opposing the Department for Education's decision to cut the Adoption and the Special Guardianship Support Fund. On April the 14th, 2025, the Department for Education announced an immediate and deeply concerning 40% cut to this fund, with little warning and no apparent impact assessment. The reduction took effect from the 1st of April, cutting the fair access limit from 5,000 to 3,000 per child, abolishing funding for specialist assessments and removing the match funding for children with the most complex of needs. This fund is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. It exists to support children who have been adopted or who are living under special guardianship orders, which is akin to adoption by a kinship carer such as a grandmother. Children who, almost without exception, have experienced significant early trauma. Many have lived through abuse, neglect, bereavement, domestic violence, or repeated family separations. Adoption or kinship care does not erase that trauma. It simply provides a stability from which healing can begin. The Support Fund enables access to timely, trauma-informed therapeutic help. Support that is essential if these adoption and SGO placements are to succeed. Without it, families may face increased strain, children's needs may escalate, and the risk of placement breakdown rises sharply. That's not only devastating for children and carers, it's also vastly more expensive for councils in the long term. The way these cuts have been implemented has caused real harm. Because there was no notice, families who already had therapeutic programmes in place have seen that support abruptly reduced or withdrawn. Children part-way through treatment have been left in limbo. Not only has the actual funding for the therapeutic support been cut, but then under this new arrangement, they'll now have to pay for any assessment from the same £3,000 pot that is meant to fund the therapy itself, meaning families sometimes have to choose between assessment and treatment, regardless of how complex the child's needs are. This will inevitably lead to delays, gaps in provision and ineffective stop-start support, precisely the opposite of what traumatised children require. The children most effective will be those with the highest and most complex needs. Children who previously relied on the now abolished match funding for exceptional cases. For them, the future has become frighteningly uncertain. As a magistrate in the family court, I've given with my colleagues, I've ordered many of these orders for special guardianship orders, and some of these children have been through some appalling experiences of parents who have been have suffered from alcohol and substance abuse. Sometimes they've died, sometimes they've neglected their children, and these children have often been taken in by a grandparent or an auntie or uncle or whatever. But that trauma support, that trauma therapy is absolutely vital if they are going to succeed in their new adoption or SGO placement. Adoption UK has warned that these decisions will directly harm children who have already had the toughest possible start in life. Research shows that 82% of adopters report real benefit from the support fund. Around 3,000 children are placed for adoption each year in England, often after long periods in care or involving multiple moves and profound loss. Many will need support not just in childhood, but maybe throughout their lives. And there are no quick fixes, as we all know, when it comes to trauma. Cutting the fund does not reduce need, it pushes the consequences elsewhere. We know previously looked after children are significantly more likely to have special educational needs. When their therapeutic needs go unmet, we will see more children requiring SEND support or education health and care plans, more exclusions, more school anxiety, and more children out of education altogether. We will see increased pressures on schools, councils and health services. We know that unmet trauma can contribute to child-to-parent violence and family breakdown, outcomes that are heartbreaking for families and very costly to the public purse. The Minister has suggested that these changes are about managing demand, but access to fewer resources is not the same as meeting need. It is a false economy. Cut now and we will pay later, financially, socially and morally. This is why this motion asks the Council to write to the Department for Education, the Secretary of State and our borough's Members of Parliament, calling for the full restoration of the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund. We all know that savings are needed in the education budget, but they must not be made at the expense of some of the most vulnerable children in our community. These children deserve more than survival. They deserve the chance to thrive in their families, their schools and in their futures. And I commend this motion to the Council.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Lloyd, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Speak now, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Mayor. I am delighted to second Councillor Merritt's important motion, and it is an important motion because it's highly likely that there are residents in each of our respective wards who are either already adoptive parents or who are considering becoming adoptive parents. And we're here this evening to talk about a promise made to some of the most vulnerable children in our society, children who have suffered abuse, neglect and trauma before finding a loving home. That promise is to support these children and their families through the lifelong journey of adoption. But that promise is being broken by slashing the amount available for therapy and removing specialised assessments. This government is removing a vital lifeline for children who need it most. For these children, stability is not guaranteed. It is built. It is maintained through therapeutic support that helps them heal from trauma and manage their complex needs. And as Councillor Merritt has already alluded to, by cutting funding from £5,000 to £3,000 per child, the government is forcing families to choose which aspects of their child's trauma they can afford to address. So this is not a saving. It is a dangerous, short-sighted and false economy. And when support is withdrawn, placements break down. When families are pushed to breaking point, children return to the care system, incurring far higher costs to the state and, more importantly, causing further irreparable harm to the child. And we have become aware of adoptive mothers who are terrified that their children will regress, unable to cope with the world and unable to remain in school. They are telling us that love is not enough. They need professional support to help these children thrive. Furthermore, this decision has been made without proper consultation. Therefore, this evening, we call on the government to reverse the 40% cut to the Adoption and Special Guardianship Support Fund immediately. We call on the government to restore the full £5,000 fair access limit per child to provide necessary therapy. We call on the government this evening to restore funding for specialist assessments, and we call on the government to commit to long-term stable and ring-fence funding for adoption support. By voting for this motion tonight, we must send a message that the well-being of adopted children is not optional, it is essential. We must not force families into crisis. We urge the government to reverse these cuts now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
It's speeches like that that give me so much respect for councillors who are part of political parties, because we all understand how it works. You're meant to follow the party line and what have you, but you can see there that passion is far more important than whether you're upset. You're speaking on what you truly believe. And it's just worth mentioning the amount of money that we're talking. We're talking around £50 million. It's not even as if, I thought the winter fuel payment of £1 billion was a small cut in total, but this is absolutely tiny. Now, the government are claiming that they're not actually cutting to make savings, they're going to spread it along more children. But to me, it just doesn't simply add up. So I'll definitely be supporting this motion. And what I would just like to say is, I, as I mentioned a million times, didn't vote for a Labour government, and I never will. But in one thing I expected from a Labour government, as I'm sure all of you did, is if there was any criticism to make, it would be that they probably threw too much money maybe at welfare. But this Labour government seems to be far more nastier than what the Conservative government was. This is only one of many different funds that it's cutting. We only have to look at stuff like the vouchers, which can be used at pantries. Currently, we don't even know if that's going to extend because it's still running on the previous funding from the Conservative government. So it's a sad state of affairs when we're worrying more about funding with a Labour government. But without making it too political, that's why I have so much respect for both of you two for speaking out on what you believe. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Myler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank Councillor Gina Merritt for bringing this forward because I think it's really important to cut that type of funding that supports therapies for children like that. I'm sure a lot of people know children that have been through that kind of traumas and things like that. To go into actually being adopted itself is a trauma in itself, to be moved away from your families. This kind of therapy is so important for these children to have it cut, but it's not saving the government a lot of money. It's something that's so important, and I do thank you for bringing it forward, even though it is obviously against the party. So thank you for that.
Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The last 16 years of my working life, I was an adoption practitioner in a voluntary agency. And accessing this money for the hardest to place children, which is what they do in the voluntary agencies, that is children who are multiple siblings together, or disturbances that that need looking at. The over fives, they're classed as hard to place children, and they come with baggage, obviously. And as I say, this money was absolutely essential for the voluntary agencies to access, never mind the local authorities who would also. So I certainly support what Councillor Merritt and Councillor Lloyd have said, and I would urge everyone in this chamber make this unanimous. Thank you.
Councillor Merritt, would you like to sum up?
Absolutely. Can I thank those members who have spoken in support of this? We are very well aware that there are difficult decisions a new government has to make when they've inherited so many very difficult economic problems. And the Department for Education, we know, is one department that has many calls upon its funding. We're well aware of that. It has to balance the needs of all children and, of course, schools. And schools, we all know, all our schools, where we're governors and so on, they're all crying out for money and so on. But I'd like to think that here in the Labour Party, on our side, as Councillor Jones has very kindly mentioned, we do not shrink from supporting our residents by demanding change from within our own government, because we believe that fighting from within, putting forward arguments that we think are the right thing to do, is really important. Our residents come first. But I want to say we do support, we do fight from within. We fight our own government, but we do it from within and not without, if you see. We do it with loyalty and with integrity and working with and alongside our colleagues for the greater good. You're quite right. A couple of people mentioned over there, when you add it up, it's not a lot of money, but it actually means an awful lot to those adoptive parents. So that's why we really urge that everybody here votes to ensure that we can at least put forward that reasoned argument as to why this particular fund should not be cut. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Members, it's time to vote using your console in front of you. The motion is carried. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Fish, which is set out on page 193 of the agenda. Councillor Fish. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, fellow members, I stand here today to move a motion of no confidence in the leader of this council. I know exactly how the Labour group will respond. We've seen the script. The Labour group has already called this political theatre. They call it gesture politics for social media. They use these phrases because they are comfortable. They use these because it's easier than defending a record of failure. But let's tell this chamber, this is nothing theatrical about a mother in Leigh who can't find a school place for her child. There's nothing gestural about a pension in Pemberton watching their disposable income swallowed by council tax while their streetlights stay broken and their roads crumble. This motion is not for the cameras. This motion is a formal cry of enough is enough on behalf of the residents of Wigan Borough. It is about leadership that has become a closed shop, a leadership supported by nodding donkeys in a cabinet that has forgotten that their mandate comes from the doorstep, not the town hall counting room. It is time for a leader who doesn't just rule but listens. Madam Mayor, let us look at the cold hard facts of fiscal management. For years, the people of this borough have been treated like an interest-free bank. Every March, we are told that maximum council tax is unavoidable. We are told that the previous government's cuts leave us no choice. But there is a social contract in local government. The people pay, the council delivers. Under this leader, that contract is broken. I ask the leader today, why is there a return on that investment? Our frontline services have shown no clear, measurable improvements. While the bills go up, the standards go down. Look at our streets, for example. Overgrown verges that haven't been touched in weeks, litter accumulating in our streets, and children's services that are struggling to support our most vulnerable. Perhaps the most damning indictment of this leadership's failure is the state of our housing. We have council housing waiting lists that has grown to a staggering length, with no credible plan and no prospect of it ever being reduced. Thousands of our residents are trapped in a state of permanent limbo, waiting for a home that his administration seems incapable of providing. And for those lucky enough to have a council property, they are being failed by a repair service that is unfit for purpose. We are hearing daily reports of long delays and shoddy workmanship. Even more terrifyingly, we have seen a breakdown in gas safety checks. This isn't just administration incompetence, it is a direct threat to the lives of our tenants. When a council fails to ensure its residents are safe in their home homes, the leader has failed in their most basic care of duty. Madam Mayor, I want to speak about the soul of our borough, our green spaces. They are lungs of our community. They are heritage we are supposed to hold trust for our children's future. However, under this leadership, we have witnessed a systematic and heartbreaking assault on our green belt. Time and time again, this council has made decisions that favour wealthy private developers over the residents who actually live here. We are losing the unique character of our towns to a rising tide of concrete. This isn't progress, it's destruction. Our planning department is actively failing its residents, prioritising developer profits over local needs and environmental concerns. And what makes it worse is the arrogance of the process. When thousands of our residents sign petitions, when they attend planning meetings, when they shout no until they're blue in the face, this administration says yes to the developers anyway. Who does this leader really serve? This leadership knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. If you want to see the true fact of mismanagement, look at the so-called prestige projects. Take the galleries development, for example, destined perhaps to be another white elephant that our taxpayers will be paying off for decades. Look at AOL, the crown jewel of our borough, left under scrutiny while its direction remains unclear, and then we come to the Ascot Warehouse project, a lightning rod for a local anger, met with a local lack of transparency from this administration. Finally, Madam Mayor, we must look at the infrastructure. This administration has no credible plan for growth. Transport links are buckling, drainage systems are failing, and the basic math of houses to families has escaped this council's planning department. We're building houses, but we're not building communities. This council's overall borrowing continues to increase with no clear plan to reduce it, plundering future generations while current services stagnate. And does this cabinet respond to these mounting crises? By treating democratic oversight as a nuisance. We have seen cabinet meetings where the most vital decisions for our borough are supposed to be debated, lasting less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to decide the fate of millions of pounds, 10 minutes to dismiss the concerns of residents. It is an insult to democracy and a symptom of leadership that believes it is beyond accountability. The evidence is undeniable. Taxes are rising while service decline. Our Greenbelt is being traded for concrete. Multi-million-pound projects are shrouded in lack of transparency. The residents of this borough deserve a leadership that is transparent, principled and focused on delivery. I recognise the political realities of this room, and a lot of members have decided not to attend tonight. I know the whip is strong, but I also know that most of you opposite hear the same complaints we do. When you knock on doors in your wards, you hear the anger, you see the overgrown verges, you know the frustration. I urge all members that our current path is unsustainable. To be brave today, do not vote for your party line, vote for your residents and vote for accountability. I therefore, Madam Mayor, move the motion of a vote of no confidence be recorded against the Executive Leader of the Council. Pursuant to Article 7 of the Constitution, the Leader be removed from office with immediate effect and the Council proceeds to an election of a new member at the earliest opportunity in accordance with Council procedure rules. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak or reserve the right?
Yes, I'd wish to speak now, if that's all right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am seconding Councillor Fisher's motion for all the reasons he states and more. The leadership of Wigan Council is failing in numerous ways. The Leader and the Cabinet seem to have forgotten why they were elected, to represent the interests of the residents of Wigan Borough, not Peel Land Properties, or the Chinese Communist Party, or big corporations. So many examples of this. They paid BCEGI, a Chinese Communist Party-owned company, £8 million to demolish the galleries, a perfectly good 30-year-old building that should have been repurposed. That money should have regenerated our centre, not demolished it. They gave planning permission to Peel to build unsightly giant warehouses right at the back of residential homes that has caused flooding, structural damage, untold misery and financial loss for residents. The media coverage this has engendered has also destroyed the reputation and credibility of Wigan Council. Numerous failed projects and lost finance. Hay Hall, Wigan Pier, King Street. A giant illegal tip allowed to accumulate in Bickershire, ruining people's quality of life with rats and flies and affecting residents' health. And it's still there a year later. However did that go missed? How could we not see all those lorries dumping rubbish? But most importantly, the housing crisis, with 12,000 people on the council waiting list and thousands more unable to buy or rent a home privately due to sky-high rents. This may be a national issue, but what did the Leader have to say when Serco and out-of-town developers were appropriating or purchasing terraced houses and local families were being evicted? Nothing. What did he have to say when planning permission was given to convert these hundreds of family homes to HMOs, making lots of money for greedy people, but making it impossible for the less well-off of our citizens to either rent or buy? Nothing, if I recall, until it was too late, and due to the efforts of independent councillors, and Article 4 was introduced borough-wide. These failures have gone on for years, and nobody ever appears to be held accountable. Well, times are clearly changing, and you do all know that. And council taxpayers want their money to be spent wisely and in their interests. The buck stops at the top, and it is time for the leader to go. He is very unlikely to be re-elected in May anyway. It would be much better to just retire gracefully. I would advise Labour councillors to get behind this motion and start putting the people you purport to represent before blind loyalty to the Labour Party, because you know quite a few of you won't be here after May. Thank you.
Councillor Conliffe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thinking all the time I've been on the council, I've never had such a ridiculous, pointless and clearly cynical motion put before the council. I mean, what is apparent is Councillor Fish is well aware of what the make-up of this council is. And so, in putting this motion forward, clearly there is no chance of it ever being approved or passed. So therefore, what is the reason behind it? And the reason behind it is really showboating, grandstanding, and having a go at the leader of this council. That's the whole purpose of it, of this motion. And, you know, in the past, the opposition have accused us of filibustering and keeping things going to prevent their motions being heard. And we have motions following this that are important to be heard. And I can understand Councillor Jones's anger at not getting his motion put forward for nearly 12 months, and for the major opposition party to, instead of putting forward his motion, putting forward this motion, which is absolutely ridiculous, is not going to be approved. Councillor Jones could have moved that. In fact, the major opposition party could have moved a motion that would have benefited greatly the residents of this borough. Because what they're proposing is a vote of no confidence. Now, I doubt whether there's any opposition on any council in the country that would prefer not to have the leader of the council that they've got and to have an opinion about the councillor. And as we go forward, I think we have to think about some of the accusations that have been made have no involvement with the leader of this council. They've talked about planning decisions that have been made and planning. Well, first of all, the leader's not a member of the planning committee and couldn't be. Planning committee cannot be whipped or told to take any particular decision. When planning committee have heard the case for and against a particular development, they have the duty to vote on that, and that happens. When a planning application is approved, neither the leader, the cabinet, or even the full council can overturn that. So if you talk about planning decisions that have been made in this borough, on the way planning deal with things, the leader has no control over that. So blaming him for that is ridiculous. And then we come on to the housing issue. And yeah, it's a major concern, the number of people on the housing waiting list. And yes, we try to do as much as we can, and we have built a significant amount of new housing within this borough over the last year or two. And when you think the only way you can build new houses, social houses, council houses, is from the housing revenue account. And we've already heard from Councillor Watson what a dire state that's in terms of the money it's borrowing and all that. So exactly how do you get the housing revenue account to build more houses without increasing borrowing and all that? So, you know, there are issues that are really challenging. And that is something that the council leader has to do with it. I tell you, many authorities would love to have Councillor Molyneux as the leader. And so to prevent this on and on attack on the leader, which is a ridiculous thing, Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a motion without notice under Rule 10H of the Rules of Procedure that the question now be put to the vote on this item. Thank you.
We have a motion. We have a... Excuse me. We have a motion and we have the motion seconded. So, members, we need to take a vote on whether we proceed now without further debate. Please use your console to vote. Right. Can we stop shouting across the chamber, please? Can you stop shouting, please? I've asked you to stop shouting across the chamber. We're taking a vote. Thank you. The vote has been carried, so we now move straight to the vote on Councillor Fisher's motion. Again, using your console to vote for the motion or against the motion. Councillor Fisher's motion is lost. Moving on. A motion. Moving on. Moving business, please. Thank you, Councillor Ramsdale. I understand some people may wish to change the vote, so if that... There you go. Can you do that right now, please? Councillor Gerard, point of order. Is it? They haven't, in fact, voted twice. They've rectified the vote when they realised they'd made a mistake on the console. Could you stand up to make your comment, please? The monitoring officer.
What has been... Where a member has voted and has immediately recognised that their vote, because we're using the electronic system, has not been recorded properly, it is only fair that we allow them, if they are immediately recognised that, to correct it. It is the same point that Councillor Jerry made actually earlier on about he didn't feel his votes were recorded properly at the last meeting. So we're not asking people to vote again. If members believe that they have voted incorrectly, it's a matter of democratic policy. If you're voting and you believe your vote and you have the right to correct minutes and you believe that your vote has been incorrect. Can I just say, I don't want to stand up here and argue with you, Councillor Hodgkinson. I've explained the position. It's not an election. It's a vote recording system. And some members have just said, I haven't pressed the right button. So we're saying to them, if that's the case, you can amend it correctly. And I don't think there's anybody here who can challenge that. I'm ignoring Councillor Brearley because he's being abusive right now, and I do not want to get involved in that. I've explained the position. That's where we are.
The decision has been made and we're moving business. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Cunliffe, which is set out on page 194 of the agenda. Councillor Cunliffe. What's your point of order?
The video of this meeting, the comments have been turned off. Can you guarantee that the comments will be turned back on so the public cannot comment?
Sorry, that isn't a point of order.
That is not a point of order.
No.
Can I just say another thing? It's very strange that none of us on this side could speak, but Councillor Cunliffe did.
Moving business. Councillor Byrne.
Just that you said that we haven't voted again, but we did all have to vote again. How do we know that's accurate? Some of us didn't know it was going ahead. I just looked and thought, what's this vote for? There's been a lot of confusion. And I don't know if it is accurate now, looking at the numbers. Could we have a look at it again, please? I'm not sure if I pressed the right button then.
Oh, dear. A response has been made to that comment and we're moving on. A motion has been submitted by Councillor Cunliffe, which is set out on page 194 of the agenda. Councillor Cunliffe, over to you.
I hope if we have two votes, this wins on both of them. As the other one lost on both of them, either way. But I think I think one of the things that are important is that we discuss and pass motions that have an impact on residents in this borough. And what I'm particularly concerned about is the rise in the number of applications for adult gaming centres open 24 hours, 7 days a week. There's been, nationally, a huge increase in the number of these applications. And unfortunately, in 2007, the government, in reforming Acts of Parliament on gambling, put in an aim to permit. And the idea was that it should be a presumption that gambling establishments, bookies and slot machines and those type of gambling establishments should be approved. Prior to that, there was something within the law that said in submitting applications for gambling establishments like this, the applicant should show that there was a lack of provision within the area and a demand for that type of facility. And that was overturned by this aim to permit. So there is really a legal responsibility on licensing and planning to give permission for any application for a gambling establishment. The two major companies that are heading this expansion of adult gaming centres are overseas companies owned by billionaires, and there's actually a Wall Street fund that is funding some of the activity. Over 50% of these applications for adult gaming centres are in the most deprived areas in the country. There's only 14 authorities in the country that don't have an adult gaming centre in them. They're all in, those 14 authorities are in some of the least deprived areas and most sort of richer areas than anything else. So there's a clear thing. And in 2022, Greater Manchester looked at gambling harms. It's estimated that somewhere around about 2.1 billion, and that's a couple of years old, and that's said to be a conservative estimate, is invested in gambling. It's people in more deprived areas. It's people trying to improve their income, to win money, to get things that are doing that. There is no need for anywhere in this borough to have a slot machine arcade open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and particularly in our more deprived areas. There are real issues in terms of gambling harms to people. It's estimated that 1 in 15 people in Greater Manchester is suffering from gambling harm, because it's not just the person and the gambler. It's the family, it's the children, it's the work opportunities and things like that. Because gambling leads to, or gambling addiction leads to certain behaviours. It leads to unemployment, it leads to unauthorised absence, it leads to all kinds of issues with people interfering with their working life and working habits. It affects a family in terms of financial difficulties, not paying the mortgage, not paying bills, not paying council tax, whatever, all those things, financial problems that then lead to difficulties in relationships. It leads to increased domestic violence. It brings about all problems in terms of long-term relationships and relationships you're in. And the other thing it does is it attracts crime. People who are addicted to these places go in there, try to increase their money, lose their money. There is an increase in crime in terms of people then resorting to crime to fund the gaming habit, or actually because they've lost all this week's wage and they're going out on the street. So it brings danger on the street. It also attracts criminal activity, doesn't it, as well? And actually, people in more deprived areas, research says that they are virtually twice as likely to become addicted to gambling as people in better off areas or more least deprived areas. So there's a real issue in terms of public health. And of course it can affect people's mental health with concern and worry about the money they've lost, whatever, and the difficulties it's putting the family in. And we know that a number of suicides are directly related to issues with gambling, gambling addiction and problems that have been done by that. And so, really, what I think we need is to give local authorities much more control over these facilities, these adult gaming centres. So first off would be if the government, and the government last year said they would take action to give local authorities more powers. And we still wait for them. So in a way, I am being as critical as Gina was about the Labour government about not addressing this problem, which is affecting significantly the more people living in deprived communities and people who are struggling and low-income people and people who are unemployed and all those issues, impacting them far more. And these places are being deliberately put in those areas in order to attract them. And so the aim to permit has got to be removed to give local authorities more powers over controlling these developments. I mean, one of the issues is, I believe there needs to be, and I think there used to be, a cumulative impact assessment where when an application is made, the local authority, and there can be a cumulative impact assessment on what the impact of that application would be in that particular area. And I think that also they ought to strengthen these to say that applicants should clearly demonstrate and identify that there is a need for this in this area and the demand. And that councils should be able to look at whether that is actually true. Because in many places there are a number of gambling establishments. And really what I want to do as well as what's said in the motion about writing to the Prime Minister for these changes, I'd like us to look internally in supplementary planning guidance of what we could do locally to put additional supplementary planning guidance that would give us much more power to deal with these. But the main thing is we need more national government to give us the powers to do this. And at the rate it's going, it needs to be pretty quickly. Because, like I said, most of these are owned by overseas companies, run by billionaires. This is huge amounts of money coming out of our area, coming out of people who are low paid, in serious difficulty. It's taking their money, it's robbing the poor to pay the rich. And not even the rich in this country, the rich overseas, tax avoiders. So it has a significant impact on our communities. We need stronger powers and more powers, but we need them quickly because of the extent to which these gaming centres are increasing not in popularity, but actually being expanded to bring that money into to those people.
Is the motion seconded?
I'll second the motion. Thank you.
Would you like to speak now or reserve the right?
Yeah, I'll speak now. Thank you. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to be able to second this motion brought to this council by Councillor Cunliffe. Wigan Borough already has many adult gaming centres, and it is clear to many of us that there is absolutely no need for any more. Our town is not short of these venues, and residents have repeatedly expressed concerns about the growing concentration of them in the same areas. What we are seeing is a pattern of 24/7 gaming centres being placed in some of our most deprived neighbourhoods. These businesses are not arriving by accident. They are deliberately targeting the communities that are already under pressure, and the impact is felt most by those who can least afford it. Flooding these areas with yet more gaming centres does nothing to support regeneration, aspiration or community well-being. We must also be honest about who benefits. These companies are not local enterprises reinvesting in our borough. They are large overseas operators making billions in profit, and they do so by preying on the most vulnerable people in our society. The social cost is borne by families, by support services and by the wider community, while the financial gain leaves the country entirely. This is why cumulative impact assessments are so important. They exist to ensure that decisions are based on evidence, on need, and on the real-world effects on local people. Any new application should have to demonstrate that it is meeting a genuine demand that is not already being served. In Wigan Borough, that is clearly not the case. The current provision is more than sufficient, and the community impact of adding yet another centre would be overwhelmingly negative. Supporting this motion is not about us opposing business. It is about standing up for responsible planning, for community well-being, and for the residents who expect us to protect them from avoidable harm. It is about ensuring that our most vulnerable are not exploited for profit, and that our neighbourhoods are not shaped by those who have no stake in their long-term future. For these reasons, I fully support the motion, and I hope everyone else will be able to too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Do you know, I find it really rich, even if I agree with a lot of what you're saying, to somehow have a moral compass all of a sudden about the big nanny state and telling people how they live their lives. Even if I agree with you, when 5 minutes before you're shutting down debate, freedom of speech, you don't want it because you don't like what it is. That's the Labour Party through and through. It's, we're going to have a big nanny state. Some things might be right, some might be wrong. But if you disagree with us, we'll call you names, we'll shut you down, and then we'll go back to moral virtuing about what's actually right and wrong, and we're going to save it. Keith, you have just done your friend more harm than if you'd let that debate on. I guarantee there's a certain councillor here who is going to be all over Facebook, leader, saying that you stopped a debate, and that'll do you. I know you didn't. That's the daft thing. That will do you more damage. I was going to go on and say what a nice, respectable guy you are, but ultimately you're at the top. I'm going to get shut down because I'm well off subject. But thank you very much, Madam.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I just want to echo what Councillor Jones said there about becoming a nanny state. And the majority of people who go to these adult gambling centres do not have addiction problems. It's probably the minority of people who go in there. And a prime example is Councillor Jones behind us there. Now, every year he does like to give his annual, bet on the local elections, and it'll be interesting to see what he comes out with this year. So we don't want to deny him that opportunity. Now, when it comes to gambling and addiction and addictive personalities, we've got to look at 24/7 online gambling as well. We've got to look at people's ability to travel, because for me, just by shutting these down, we're not actually treating these people. We should be investing in offering better services to help these people with addiction in these areas. And then we've got to look at the job front. We know that pre-COVID, we had a working population within the borough of 129,000 people in work. Today, that's at 110,000 people, so 19,000 people are out of work. So these adult gaming centres do employ local people and help people to prosper and get out of poverty. And then if we're going to look at regulation, We must also look at, and especially the cumulative impact assessments, which I'm all for, we've got to look at the vape shops, the car washes and the barbers, because that's what's really destroying our high street, these sorts of businesses, which 9 times out of 10 are fronts for criminality. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gerrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cunliffe, for bringing this to the Chamber. It's a novelty being able to speak on a motion. Yeah, I fully agree with this, but as just been alluded by my ward colleague, it's not just these gambling shops, it's a lot of other shops that are depriving the high street. Gambling is a big problem, online mainly. That's where a lot of people are doing the gambling now, these slot machines straight online. They can rattle through the wages in a couple of minutes. It's scary. But there is a campaign, what I ask you to highlight people who come to you with gambling problems. It's a self-exclusion from gambling establishments where they can put themselves forward to be excluded from all the gambling, the bookies, the slot machine places within that vicinity. But you mentioned about deprived areas where these are popping up. I've gone on and on about how we've got to invest in areas such as Atherton to bring up the high street to a suitable standard. So these properties what lay empty and then get taken over by these places would probably go to like an independent person who tried to make a go of it. We can't just keep investing in Wigan and Leigh. And I know that, Keith, this is what you're bringing up, is the shop in Leigh. But other areas are not getting the investment it needs to get that peg up on the ladder, to get investment in there and get different clientele into the town centres, not just them with drug and alcohol and gambling addictions, which is a blight on the town centre. So I fully agree with this, but we've got to look at what we can do as well. Apart from writing to Keir Starmer, yet again, we'll be doing it again, I think, on next motion, are we? I'm not too sure. We're getting a blaze here to it now, because it seems to be every single motion is writing to the Prime Minister or government, whoever it is. It's ridiculous. We had a perfect motion a minute ago where we could discuss things about leadership of this council. Leadership. We've got a case now of the tail wagging the dog, and it should be the other way around. The last motion wasn't a go at anybody, it was a go at where this council's going. Unfortunately, Dave, you're at the top, whoever it would be getting the same, so it's nothing personal. But with this motion, invest in our town centres and our district centres on the estates or what have you, and these shops may not appear. Thank you.
Councillor Draper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Yes, for allowing us to speak freely. Thank you very much. Democracy is still alive. In Wigan, not. I agree with this motion. It is. I've got family members who have issues. But what I would like to say, you may shut me down. I'm really not bothered, to be perfectly honest. I had a lot to say, and it is personal to me, about the leader. Now, Councillor Cunliffe, you talk about theatrical.
No. Sorry, Councillor Draper, that's not relevant to this motion.
Well, you cannot shut people down like that. It's
but you're not
absolutely
speaking
ridiculous.
to the current motion.
No, well, I've just agreed with it. You've just you allowed the motion and the seconder and everybody else who wanted to speak not to speak, only one person, which is Councillor Cunliffe. Then
we're not speaking about the previous motion.
That's what
we're
it is.
On this motion now. This is the motion on the
so
agenda.
So I can't speak
now.
anymore.
Not
no?
unless you're going
okay.
to speak.
I
on
agree
this
with the motion. Thank you very much.
Councillor Cunliffe, do you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just think, in terms of what some of the opposition have said, I do agree there are a lot more issues in terms of like the vape shops and all that, but I think this is one where there's a presumption to approve something that is damaging to the community, and I want the government to change it. That's not to say that we need to address all those other things as well, because I'd like much stronger powers to the local authority to be able to do that, but let's just get this one out of the way first, because there were powers before that were relaxed. This government said they'd bring back the powers, and they haven't yet. So that's why I was doing that. And Stuart, I know I'm not talking about shutting these places. I'm talking about not having more power to control how many there are and where they are. That's the thing. Not shutting existing ones necessarily, but existing ones that are there. And, you know, they're already in this borough. They're already in this borough. What we don't want is more. And the cumulative impact assessment would enable you to make a case about whether they are required or not required. And in areas where they're not required, we wouldn't give them permission. So it really is, and I think Councillor Cleave outlined the real problem about this. This is stripping money from wealth from this borough. In terms of community wealth building, it's not providing opportunities for any local business. It is purely extracting money, basically from poorer people in this borough and extracting it to billionaires overseas. It's not doing anything about developing this borough. And Stuart, you were talking about developing and regenerating areas. This is taking money and extracting money out of our economy here in Wigan, and it needs to be done. And it has no relevance to the previous motion anyway. So, thank you.
It's time to vote. Please use your console. And please take care when you're voting. The motion has been carried. Thank you, members. Just to point out now, we're slightly less than 30 minutes away from the guillotine. So the next motion, a motion has been submitted by the Leader, which is set out on page 194 of the agenda. Leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for your vote of confidence, ladies and gentlemen. I think when we start to look back at the history of this borough, I think we all basically know it was built on coal, and I think Wigan itself was actually called Coalopolis back in the 1800s. And I think what is significant is the fact there is a plaque on this building, which was the second mining college in the UK, that says within 1 mile of this building there are 1,000 pit shafts when this building was opened. So that shows the significance of what the Lancashire coalfield, and particularly this borough, held in terms of the economy of this country. But that came with a cost. It came with a human cost. It came with an environmental cost, on which Wigan is eventually, as a borough, overcoming. But what does concern me, and it should concern everybody, the threat that still hangs over places like this borough for fracking to be tested and drilled for. And with all due respect to the colleagues on the front bench across the chamber, the Deputy Leader of Reform recently spoke in Scotland, telling energy companies to get ready with their applications for fracking to be a major boost to the British economy. Well, it's places like this borough that would suffer. And I think we all know the story of what happened in Lancashire in terms of the first fracking well that took place there. And we saw the public backlash, but also the damage that it caused. What we must do now is close that door permanently. We should not even be considering ever again to start drilling for shale gas. It needs to be kicked as far in the long grass as it can be. Because let's not forget, some of the prime targets for fracking are places like this borough. And some of us who remember the maps that were published probably around 2015, this borough was at the centre of the places where people wanted to drill wells for shale gas. Now, if you want to sell that to your constituencies, feel free. I certainly don't. But I certainly know that threat is hanging over us. So I would hope, regardless of party lines, that everybody will support this motion, because the last thing we need is to be inundated with fracking requests and fracking exploration across this borough. And it is a very, very serious threat. I am certainly not going to wear a baseball cap with drill baby drill. Other politicians may choose to do that. But can I just say that in moving this motion, I would hope that we can send a very clear message to the Prime Minister, to the government, and in fact, Stuart, that's the only way you get things changed, is by standing up and shouting about it, as you well know. So I'm moving this motion, Madam Mayor, and I hope everybody else will support it. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
I beg to second, Madam Mayor. Can I speak now?
Speak now. Thank you, Councillor Prescott.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. Madam Mayor, I support entirely the motion moved by the leader. Fracking presents many detrimental impacts on the environment, which will have negative effect on our communities. These include significant greenhouse gas emissions, methane for one. Water contamination from chemicals used in the process due to flowback, which is water returned to the surface that is highly saline and contains toxins and presents significant disposable challenges. The process also causes the destruction of habitat and a loss of biodiversity, noise pollution, and induces seismicity or minor earth tremors. The process uses vast amounts of water and releases what is known as volatile organic compounds, which affect air quality and disrupts landscapes, impacting on wildlife and local communities through increased traffic noise with potential health issues from pollutants. What's not to like? Supporting this problematic planet-damaging industry process would not be in the best interest of the people we are elected to represent. Madam Mayor, I support the motion and ask members to do the same. Not to do so would, I believe, show an indifference to the best interests of the people we represent and to this borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Jones.
Be glad to hear this is probably the last time I speak tonight. This is a funny one for me. On one hand, as a councillor for Bryn, if there was a fracking application, I would support my residents who I know would be against it. However, we have a problem, a very, very big problem. We have gas and electric absolutely soaring. The country as a whole and all the councils are putting themselves in massive debt over this ludicrous idea of becoming net zero when we only produce less than 1% of global emissions. If we went net zero today, the global emissions would not change at all. That's not my opinion, that's an absolute fact. So what do? We've got options like fracking, or we've got options to carry on. I mentioned before about heat pumps. The idea about that is another idea about going green. Going green at the moment without having the right technology, Madam Mayor, is killing people. It's making it too expensive for people who cannot afford gas and electric. So my position is clear. First and foremost, before we gallivant all around the world stage saying that we're going to go net zero and we're going to do this, I want our residents to be able to afford to stay warm. And at current, they cannot do that with other plans. Now, my position on fracking personally is this. If the science shows that it causes earthquakes or it's any risk to life, I'm against it. If not, then it needs to be looked at very carefully. If it's safe and it means that we've got a reliable energy source, then we can look at it. But there is an answer, and it's something that the leader pointed on right at the beginning of his speech. We have something under the ground here in Wigan, and we have lots and lots of it, and that's coal. That's what we should be using. If we used coal, it's better than fracking, and it's a lot cheaper than heat pumps and all the rest of the green energy. I don't mean every single house, like the Victorian times, has a wood burner in and the smog. I'm on about creating gas and electric by using coal. 1, it would create jobs. 2, it would give people cheaper gas and electric. 3, we have some of the best coal on the planet. We can then sell that coal around the world and bring much needed income back to this country. But the problem is we care all the time about just, I don't even know what the correct term is. It's a type of behaviour where we pretend we're trying to save the planet and give these great big announcements and go to all these different summits around the world. But let me ask you, and please somebody come back to me on this. If we do what you all suggest, and we don't use fossil fuels, and we keep going green, like you're saying, and I don't mean shipping it over from another country, because that doesn't make any difference, please tell me what difference it will make on global warming on a global, when we've got countries like Russia, like China, like the United States of America, that are, as Dave says, drill baby drill, they're digging for coal, they're drilling for gas. It will make no difference whatsoever. So what is the point of making our residents struggle? People are now getting bills who have a semi-detached house for £500–600 a month. Not to mention the criminality of the private companies who half of the time are giving them estimated readings and pushing them into debt. Now, I understand it's well engraved in you about the green dream, about global warming, believing that we're destroying the planet. But just please, have a think about it. It's not about left and right, it's not about Reform, Tories or Labour. Just have a think about, would we rather see our residents be able to afford to stay warm? Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Councillor Moffat. Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I find the leader's closing comments about, to be heard, you have to shout loudly. Based on this evening's events, actually isn't the case. I find it absolutely bizarre that we currently have a Labour Party who seem intent on destroying all of our industry throughout the UK. Official figures from the National Energy Systems Operator has estimated that net zero over the next 25 years is going to cost us £4.5 trillion. Trillion. I can't even describe that as a telephone number because it's longer than a telephone number. I had to Google how many zeros there are in a trillion. And 4.5 is the lower figure. Other estimates have gone as high as 10 trillion. And that's a legacy that you're leaving for my children, your children, my grandchildren and your grandchildren to pay in the future. As a proud Wiganer, I'm immensely proud of our mining heritage. I'm not ashamed of it. Granted, it did some damage, but it built who we are today. And as a group, you are sanctioning, condemning its newest form to the annals of history and banning it. Our forefathers would be ashamed. They wouldn't have banned it. They would have looked at what issues there were. Fracking isn't perfect. It is flawed. But they would have worked on it as an emerging technology, and they would have put those flaws right. And then they would have capitalised on it for the good of us all, instead of driving our poorest into poverty. Today, we hear further information that people are going to be compelled to buy heat pumps. Heat pumps that don't work, they're not fit for purpose. They currently don't work, yet that's an emerging technology that we've got to get behind, even though they don't work and they're incredibly expensive, and people are going to have to take loans out from the government to fund them. Hypocrisy, further hypocrisy, and to use the phrase that Councillor Jones was looking for, just more virtue signalling. And actually the figure that we talk about, 1%, the human population of this country is responsible for less than, I think it was 0.036% of the carbon in the environment. I'm not a climate denier. whilst it may be warming up, I don't believe that we're solely responsible, and I don't believe that we're the sole answer to solving that problem. So whilst you're busy banning selected emergent technology and the use of our natural resources, whilst at the same time advocating chopping trees down in the US, shredding them into pellets, and then putting them into container ships that are run on diesel and just blurting fumes out across the Atlantic, in the same time you're making net zero billionaires even wealthier. So please stop the virtue signalling and look at the reality. This also suppresses economic growth, putting people out of work and forcing your poorest voters to choose between heating and eating. And that's when you go to the polls in May, just remember that, that's on record, that today you're making a choice on behalf of your voters between eating and heating. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again, Madam Mayor. Firstly, can I thank Councillors Molyneux and Prescott for bringing this important motion to full council this evening. I fully support this motion. And primarily, I speak on this motion as a councillor for Loughton East, as several years ago, when we first raised the prospect of fracking in Loughton, our political opponents at that time ridiculed our concerns. It now appears that the prospects and dangers of fracking in Loughton and in the wider borough have not diminished over the years, as there are those who wish to introduce fracking to our local communities at the earliest opportunity. As has already been touched upon by Councillor Prescott, the potential for future and even small-scale fracking continues to be met with strong opposition due to environmental concerns, including the risk of earthquakes and water contamination. And as a councillor for Loughton East, can I just say that Loughton faces enough challenges right now without the prospect of having fracking there. So it's on that basis, Madam Mayor, that as long as I continue to be a councillor in Loughton, I shall oppose any plans for fracking there, and I know that this is shared by my two colleagues in Loughton, Councillors Gregory and Smith. Thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Mayor.
No. Oh.
Okay, to suspend the council rule and to extend the council guillotine to allow this motion to be completed and the final one to be heard. Thank you.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Can we take a vote on that motion, please, to extend the guillotine? We're having a show of hands. On your console, please. Come on, it's coming now. Okay, it's carried. The motion without notice has been carried, so the guillotine will be extended until we get through the business of the meeting. Thank you. May I invite Councillor Myler to speak on the motion?
I'm going to be voting for the motion, not on the grounds that I'm against fracking in general anywhere, but like Steve mentioned, if there was any application for fracking anywhere neighbouring, and in Wigan in general, it will likely be on green land, people are going to be against it. People aren't going to be for fracking in areas where it's green land. I do actually agree with Steve on coal, though. There are much better ways to mine coal now than there was 60, 70 years ago. We can do that in a much more efficient way, and it will bring money into the economy. So I would prefer coal over fracking, and I will be voting for the motion because I don't think it needs a place in Wigan. Thank you.
Councillor Hodgkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I'm actually going to support this motion tonight because I remember back in 2015 when this council voted to stop fracking in Wigan. And it's not that I'm totally against fracking. I think it's the area, because obviously it's the prime location with the mining and everything. But we already see issues with mining gas coming up from the pits, what are under there. We don't have a clue how many pits are under there around the borough and what danger it's going to do with the current technology they've got. Obviously in future, if a different technology comes, I'm not against it being tested like this fracking was, but the Richter scale it was doing, I think Preston area, was shocking on buildings and affecting residents. But never say never to any new technologies, and hopefully in the future there will be a technology to get that gas to help our communities and to bring bills down. But currently, the current fracking way, the method, I don't think it's right, so I will be supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councillor Molyneux, for bringing this motion to the Chamber. I'm neither for or against fracking until I read much detail into the pros and cons of it. But I find it astonishing that we hear the leader and Councillor Prescott speaking about green issues when we've got trees coming down left, right and centre across the borough, fields being built over, big hulking warehouses being built right next to people's houses. You know, it's a bit contradictory, to tell you the truth. But as Councillor Moffat alluded to earlier, in the past, when coal and gas was all trialled, they had the dangers. I mean, in Atherton, we had our forefathers, safety items were made, weren't they, here in this borough, in Atherton, to make it safer. So as technology goes on, it does make it safer. But the whole aim has got to be bringing down people's energy bills. It would be more worthwhile writing to the government and asking them to get rid of the green tax on everybody's bills and fetch that down, because this green utopia, what the Labour government are going for, is just non-existent. We're just throwing good money where we can bring the prices down on these emerging technologies, improve them, until we get to such a stage where the green energy is more affordable. It's just virtue signalling beyond belief that we have to pay. I mean, our bills now are just going through the roof, absolutely through the roof, and it's scary how much people are spending on their bills. So, like I say, I'm neither for or against fracking until I know more about it. And I should imagine everybody should read up on it, because if it's banned fracking in Wigan straight away, if it's in an area, job creation, bringing money into the local economy, stuff like that. You know, so there is pros and cons of everything. So thanks for bringing it to the Chamber. I'll probably be abstaining until I read more into it. Yeah, thank you. Like I say, it's good to hear that you might have changed your tune on green issues, and it's a pity you weren't in that mindset a few months ago. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and for allowing me to speak. I just want to echo a few comments of my fellow councillors here. First of all, coal. We have got a great industrial past and heritage in this borough, and I think over the years since the net zero ideology came into play, we've been importing tens of millions of tonnes of coal until recently, which in itself is, you know, just virtue signalling, because that's got a greater carbon footprint when it's mined, when it's not as regulated abroad when we bring it in. Second of all, we have got to look at emerging technologies. Now, I'm an environmentalist, and I believe we should look after the environment, and fracking has come a long way. So rather than just saying we're going to ban it out completely, can we not just research it to see if it has emerged, because if you look at countries that do frack, and you know, I'm not going to get a cap on to say drill baby drill like Donald Trump over in the United States, but ultimately we've got the highest energy bills in Europe. We have other countries now digging and drilling in the North Sea and selling our resources, which could be drilling ourselves, back to us at a higher price. So yeah, it will create job creation, and it will create prosperity and wealth. And also, the leader said, the deputy leader said the leader doesn't get involved in planning decisions. This is blocking potential planning decisions with this very motion. So, like I say, I'm an environmentalist. We shouldn't write this off completely. It's an emerging technology. It has got loads of financial benefits. If it is suitable in certain areas, then we should support it. And finally, what I'll just say is, you know, we need to scrap this net zero ideology. And if any members would like to cross the floor to save the seats in May, including the leader, then they've got till May the 7th to put an application in. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you for inviting me to speak, Madam Mayor. If I may, I'll start by saying that I fully support the motion, and I'm glad that it's been brought forward. I think I'd go so far as to say that I'm pretty well against fracking anywhere at any time. I think the history of fracking is that some capitalists in the United States made fortunes from fracking. So some capitalists in this country wanted to emulate them. And from what I can work out, it hardly seems to have got off the ground. Now, a debate developed, and it's a diversionary debate away from fracking. And it's about green technology and old technology. And maybe we should have a special motion about that. Look, I've never heard such a council of despair that came from those benches over there. I don't like to stand up and extemporise as I am now. I like to prepare my speeches carefully. But I didn't realise that this is the way it was going to go, and therefore I haven't prepared. The trouble is, the people on those benches, they were extemporising as well. They give no indication that they've looked into green technology and some of the advantages that it will offer, not just in this country. If I could pick up where Councillor Jones started, he said that what does it matter? We only produce 1% of the pollution, of the world's pollution in this country. You know, that's a fundamental mistake, Councillor Jones. What you're mixing up is absolute numbers and proportional numbers. So proportionally, we don't produce very much. But absolutely we do, and it's a big problem, and it does need to be addressed. Now, you know, you also mentioned, well, you said Russia and America and China, they're the big polluters. And it's broadly true, but perhaps you don't know that China is now at the position of parity, where it's producing as much of its energy from green technology, solar and wind in particular, as it is from fossil fuels. And, you know, this technology, it's rolling out all over the world. One country you might not expect me to mention is Pakistan. But I've heard that all the big cities in Pakistan, when you look around, virtually every suitable property has solar panels on the roof. And, you know, solar's taking off in Africa. It's presenting huge opportunities, because if you have solar power and you have electricity, then you can have mobile phones. And, you know, the technological opportunities open up enormously. Now, it's not as if there aren't any opportunities from new technology in this country. With an island in a sea.
Excuse me, Councillor McLaughlin. I need to bring in Councillor Jones.
Hi. Just a point of
Can you stand up, please?
Yeah, sorry. Yep, point of explanation. Councillor Jones didn't say it doesn't matter. What he was saying was, what I was saying, sorry, is it's not with people. I know, third person.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can I carry on? It's not worth people dying for less than 1% of CO2 emissions. Not that it doesn't matter, it's not worth people dying. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please carry on, Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, I'm not sure that that's justified. But anyway, we're an island that's surrounded by tides. So there's a potential for tidal power. Strangely enough, once we started building tide turbines in the sea, the king found out that he owns the land. So we've got to rent the land on the seabed. We've got to rent the land on the seabed from the king. So he makes a fortune out of that. However, there is hope, because there's also floating power where the turbines are built on floats and the king doesn't get a share then. But there's thousands of people in this country engaged in building wind capturing devices. We need to do a lot more on solar, but obviously we haven't got the potential for solar. And somebody's bound to stand up in a minute and say, but what about when the wind doesn't blow and when the sun doesn't shine? Well, you've got to couple all that together with storage and batteries.
Sorry, Councillor McLaughlin, your time is up. Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll try and keep this as brief as I can, really. But, I mean, the fracking, I think, up and down the country, you'd be a brave man to put that on your leaflet, wouldn't you? And it seems to be that some people have not got a problem with fracking, provided it's not in their own backyard. So I think you've got to make a decision in that. This is about Bury. I think there's no doubt the damage, the environmental damage. And I do take the point about coal, and I've got some sympathy with that. I think we can potentially look at clean coal and stuff like that. But just remember, I'm proud of our man in it, but he did immense damage to this borough, which we're still cleaning up. Over 100 years later, we're still cleaning that mess up. And the question is for me, do I trust industrial capitalists to do a proper job on fracking? Well, you know, do I, Nelly? That's the answer to that one, because I wouldn't trust them capitalists as far as I could throw them. So for me, fracking, it's a no-brainer. We shouldn't be even doing that. But we've seen for some reason, and I know you get briefed off central office, and this is the problem when you cross the floor. Quite frankly, if I was crossing the floor, I'd do the honourable thing and call a by-election. But putting that to one side, what I'd say to you now, you're under collective responsibility. And you're in a funny place, sir, because you're an environmentalist, but now you've got I'm not sure about fracking. It's not a bad thing now, is it? And that's the thing about collective responsibility, being a member of a party. Now, what I would say, your political party is well known to be funded by fossil fuel companies and fracking companies. So is it any wonder that a political party is funding those very people that may well frack?
Excuse me, Councillor Hunt, we have a comment.
It's generally not a point of order, Madam Mayor, but go on.
Please, can you stand up? Please, can you stand up when you speak?
Yeah, to be fair...
Please, can you stand up when you speak?
To be fair, I have... Excuse me, can I finish?
No, I want you to stand up before you speak.
Let me explain why I'm not standing
Can
up.
you stand up when you speak?
Madam Mayor, I'm trying to tell you, I've had an hernia operation, and why I sat down, I was taking a minute to get up, like last time, but you're not even letting me finish. I don't want a sympathy off any of you, believe me. I genuinely have, most time I can get up, no problem. But did I really have to explain that publicly? You don't ask anyone else about the medical who can't stop. Now, you made me forget what I'm up to. Point of order. He's meant to be talking on the motion about fracking, not responding to what Paul Watson says or what Nigel Farage says as Reform UK. You need to be neutral and finger everybody.
No. It's
Come on.
not a point of
We've
order.
had,
Thank
we've
you.
had a long
You
night
can
and
sit
there's been a
down
lot of
now.
filibustering,
Thank you.
so let's make progress.
You can
so,
sit down now.
you know,
Thank you.
we've been up like Jack in a box all night, so we've not done so bad. So come on, let's crack on with this and let's end it, and then we can all get home, for
Councillor
God's
Hunt.
sake. You know.
Councillor Hunt,
Madam Mayor, can I
you
finish?
just hold on, please?
It's been on all night, Madam
No.
Mayor.
Can you just hold on, please? Thank
You
you.
know.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Hunt, you may continue.
Right, so there's
now.
this obsession with sudden green energies costing all our road folk and they're freezing to death. I'll tell you why they're freezing to death, not because of green tariffs. I think they make up about less than 6%. It's greedy energy companies why our road folk are freezing to death. And I'll tell you what started all this, one of your predecessors, Maggie. She started this with privatisation. It's privatisation, these greedy energy companies. There's not one word about them tonight. It's all about the green tariffs, what make up probably 2 or 3%. We all know that gas is set on global oil prices. And I, for one, won't be voting for fracking, I can assure you tonight. So I'd expect everybody in this chamber, like we've done tonight, by the way, we've gone against our very government and our very party, and rightly so, and you should do the same. Vote for what's best for this borough, not for your political party. Thank you, Madam.
Leader, would you like to sum up, please?
Can I first of all tell Councillor Watson, despite his Christmas card, he didn't convince me, and I'm even worried about himself because he's not even got his pale blue tie on tonight. But that may be because of his football team's performance last night. But can I just say, this is a threat to our borough, a major threat to our borough. And it's all right saying fracking will be nice and there'll be new technology. This borough has been highlighted of an area where fracking is possible. And that allows people then to think, well, we'll go and drill in Wigan. So if you want to say on your leaflets in May that you support fracking, feel free. But you said to everybody else, it's not in my back garden, it's all right. Because that's what you're saying. What I'm saying tonight is we need a strong word to make sure that we don't see fracking in this borough. And when you talk about the coal industry, speak to a lot of people who worked in it, the bit they liked was the camaraderie. They certainly didn't like going down hundreds and hundreds of yards to dig coal in an atmosphere that cost a lot of them their lives. I have relatives who've died because of coal mining. So many of you will have relatives who died of coal mining. And if you think it's a wonderful industry, go and try it somewhere else and then come back and tell us.
Point of exclamation, Councillor Myler.
When I think you're referring to what we were talking about, coal mining over here, but at the minute, you don't need to send people down coal mines in the way that we were when we all lost relatives to coal mining in Wigan, which everyone here will have lost someone to coal mining at some point because it was a massive thing, but that is not what needs to be done now to get coal out of the ground in Wigan.
No, I'll tell you what they did. They did open cast mining. They did open cast mining. You didn't need to go down a mine for open cast mining, but ask people who lived next door to it how much they enjoyed it. And the answer was no, they didn't. And can I just say that I would expect everybody to support this motion, because I'm seriously saying there is a threat. There is a threat to the people of this borough from fracking. It will not go away. It will not go away, and it will keep raising its head. We have already made a commitment, or I made a commitment, that we wouldn't allow it on council land. We need to extend that so it doesn't happen anywhere. We know some of our neighbouring authorities who have changed political persuasion, and the last thing I would like to see is fracking taking place in one of our neighbouring authorities that affects people and properties in this authority. I'm saying it needs to be kicked into the long grass, never to return. and I would expect everybody to support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Members, it's time to vote. On your consoles, please. The motion has been carried, members. Thank you. The final motion of the evening has been submitted by Councillor Parkinson and it's set out on page 195 of the agenda. Councillor Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the Council. Today I'm asking you to consider a motion that goes to the heart of public safety, the safety of every resident who steps on a pavement, crosses a road or travels in a vehicle on our streets. And while we rightly acknowledge the Government's recent proposal to test the eyesight of drivers over 70 every 3 years, we must also recognise that this approach, though well-intentioned, is incomplete and unfair. Poor eyesight does not begin at 70, and singling out only those over 70 creates an unfair inequality, because eyesight problems do not begin at a fixed birthday. They affect drivers of all ages. Tragically, we recently saw the consequences of a system that relies on self-reporting and voluntary honesty rather than robust universal checks. Because eyesight is almost never recorded as the cause of collisions, we are left with a system that underreports the danger and underprotects the public. Accidents caused by poor eyesight are not separated out, but we know that this happens in our borough of Wigan, and indeed you will hear from my seconder her personal experience. Over the past few years, 4 people in Lancashire lost their lives because drivers with severely impaired vision were still legally on the road. These cases are not abstract statistics, they are real people, real families, and real tragedies that could have been prevented. These cases can also be seen on the Channel 5 documentary Cause of Death, Licence to Kill. It follows the senior coroner from Preston as he investigates the 4 deaths caused by drivers with severely impaired eyesight, which is truly shocking, and I urge you to watch it. In March 2022, 80-year-old Peter Westwell was killed in Langho, Preston, by a driver who was, in the words of the coroner, almost blind. That driver, 81-year-old Neil Pemberton, had a long history of eye disease and had been repeatedly told by clinicians that he should not be driving well before he was 70. Yet because the law places the responsibility on the driver to self-report, he continued to drive until the day he struck and killed Mr Westwell. A second victim, Anne Ferguson, aged 69, also died in circumstances where the driver's eyesight was found to be below legal standards. He lied to his optometrist and stated that he did not drive. In another devastating case, I'm sure you will have seen this on the TV, both in news and in documentaries, Grace Folds and Mary Cunningham, whose daughter and granddaughter are sitting in the public gallery, were friends and were killed as they crossed the road when they were struck by a driver whose eyesight had deteriorated significantly so that he could barely see the steering wheel, and he had been told 10 years prior that he was not fit to drive. The coroner found that the driver's visual impairment was a major factor in the crash, and he is now in prison. These 4 deaths were examined together by Lancashire Senior Coroner Dr James Aidley, who concluded that the UK system for verifying drivers' eyesight was ineffective and unsafe. He felt so strongly that he instigated Rule 43, now called a report to prevent future deaths, to the government. But he went further, stating that Britain has the laxest licensing system in Europe, relying almost entirely on self-reporting, and that this reliance directly contributed to these 4 preventable deaths. Madam Mayor, members, these tragedies illustrate exactly why our current system is not good enough, why the government's proposal is not enough. Testing the eyesight of drivers over 70 every 3 years is a step, but only a small one. It assumes that eyesight problems are primarily age-related, but we know that younger drivers can also have undiagnosed or undisclosed vision issues. Some may not realise their eyesight has deteriorated. Others may avoid reporting it for fear of losing their licence. Under current law, optometrists and the very professionals who diagnose these many conditions have no statutory obligation to report patients who are unfit to drive. They can advise, they can warn, but they cannot ensure that action is taken. The 4 Lancashire deaths show the consequences of this gap. In those cases, clinicians had warned each of the drivers not to drive, but because reporting was voluntary, they selfishly chose to carry on regardless. Madam Mayor, universal testing is surely a fair and safe approach. The Association of Optometrists has been clear in announcing that mandatory eyesight testing should apply to all drivers, not just those over 70. They support testing at the point of applying for a provisional licence, at the point of applying for a full licence, and at every renewal thereafter, currently every 10 years. This is not discrimination, this is fairness, this is consistency, and this is safety. If we believe that every driver should be able to see well enough to react to hazards, read signs and judge distances, then that standard must apply to everyone, not just older people over 70. This motion today proposes 3 practical proportionate steps. The first, that this Council writes to the Secretary of State for Transport, urging the Government to introduce legislation requiring optometrists to report patients who are unfit to drive to the DVLA. This is not about punishing people, it is about preventing avoidable deaths. Secondly, to support initiatives promoting regular eyesight testing for all drivers. We want to normalise eye tests as part of responsible driving. Just like checking your tyres, having an MOT or renewing your insurance, checking your car is mandatory, but checking the driver currently is not. And we would like to collaborate with local optometry practices by working with local professionals so that we can help raise awareness, improve compliance and help ensure that drivers understand both the importance of good vision and the legal responsibilities that come with it. This matters to our residents here in Wigan and across the country. We are not immune to the risks seen in Lancashire. Every day, thousands of vehicles travel through our borough. Every day, pedestrians, cyclists and families rely on the assumption that the person behind the wheel can see clearly enough to drive. We cannot wait for a tragedy here, although there have probably been many already, before we act. By adopting this motion, Wigan Council sends a clear message. Road safety is a shared responsibility and eyesight standards must be universal, not selective. We honour the memory of Peter Westwell, Grace Folds, Mary Cunningham and Anne Ferguson by learning from what happened to them and by ensuring that such preventable tragedies do not happen ever again. Madam Mayor, members of all parties, this is a reasonable, equitable, evidence-based and compassionate motion. It strengthens public safety, supports equality, professional judgment and aligns with expert recommendations. I commend this motion to the Council and urge members to support it. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded? Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
I'll speak now, Madam
Thank you, Councillor Karen.
Madam Mayor, fellow councillors, I'm proud to second this motion, and I thank my colleague for bringing forward such a vital and timely proposal. We have heard today about the heartbreaking cases of Maria Cunningham, Grace Foles, Peter Westwell and Anne Ferguson. 4 lives lost due to poor eyesight. Some of you may be aware that in April last year, I was injured outside this town hall by a car that mounted the pavement, causing injuries for which I am still receiving rehab. The driver failed the eyesight test at the incident and surrendered their licence. We know poor vision impairs a driver's ability to read road signs, detect hazards and react in time to avoid accidents. According to road safety bodies, a significant percentage of accidents involve drivers with uncorrected vision problems. So both orthoptists and GPs are indeed best placed to identify these risks. By empowering them and obligating them to report drivers who pose a danger due to their vision impairment, we are prioritising safety. We currently have a system where drivers can continue to operate a vehicle without ever having their eyesight professionally checked after passing their initial test. This is an obvious glaring gap in public safety. The government have proposed mandatory testing for drivers over 70, but why stop there? As mentioned, vision problems don't occur just when you turn 70. They can affect anyone at any age, and when they do, the consequences can be devastating. The motion is not about creating barriers, it's about creating safeguards. It's about ensuring that those who drive on our roads are fit to do so, not just mechanically, but medically. So let me also be clear, this motion is not about punishing people with visual impairments, it's about saving lives. It's about preventing tragedy before it happens and not after. And it's about ensuring that decisions about driving fitness are based on objective, professional medical evidence and not guesswork. So I urge all members to support this motion for the 4 people we sadly heard about today, and also for every pedestrian, cyclist and driver who deserves to feel safe on our roads. Let's lead by example. Let's make Wigan a borough that puts safety first. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We'll move to the vote on this motion. Please. Sorry, somebody waiting. Oh, then we go back. Okay. Apologies, I'm on the wrong page. Do any members wish to speak? Councillor Parkinson, would you like to sum up at all?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Very briefly, this motion aims to address the inequality of suggestions that only drivers over 70 are mandated to have a sight test. It goes further by helping to ensure more pedestrians and passengers are protected by drivers unsafe to drive through poor eyesight. It supports the call of optometrists for them to be able to report those deemed unfit to drive through poor eyesight. Madam Mayor, members, let's protect and prevent our residents and those across the country on our roads and prevent unnecessary deaths and the heartache that their families and friends are caused. I urge you to support this motion.
Members, now it's time to vote. Please use your consoles. The motion is carried. Thank you, members. Before I conclude the meeting this evening, members, can I request that members remain in the chamber for 5 minutes whilst the public gallery and reception areas are cleared? Thank you. That now concludes the business for this evening, members. Thank you for your attendance. Have a safe journey home.